of our updated FY25 budget. When we met back in March, we did a proposed budget knowing that we would have to make an amendment to it when our fiscal year closed out. So let's see. If you flip over to the second page, I'll just go over line by line or the changes that we've had. We ended up closing out about $55,000 more than anticipated for our carryover. The two major reasons for that was we ended up with $28,000 more in our construction review fees. We had an extra project come in, which was great. And then, as you guys know, we started our sweep accounts for our surety account and our checking account in the spring, and we weren't exactly sure the impact that was going to have. And that ended up having about $20,000 more than we projected in interest income. Which then carried forward to our $705,000 beginning balance. If you scroll down just a little bit more, you'll notice the Greenways grants and donation line. I believe that's line number 7 on the budget. When we did the budget back in March, we didn't anticipate applying for the Paul and I grant. Since then, we've decided to apply for it. We're not exactly sure that we'll get it. But if we do, it can be anywhere from $6,000 to $9,000. To be conservative, I've put $6,000 in there. If we flip over to the second page, line number 43, miscellaneous grant projects, that will be the expense for the grant that I just talked to you guys about. We ended up carrying over about $1,500 from the grant that we had last year. Add that to the $6,000 we're hoping to get this year, and that gives us the $7,500. If we go down a little bit further to line number 55 in green, that amount has increased. We ended up with a larger increase in our insurance this year than anticipated. We ended up with a 22% increase in insurance. I did contact KCO just to check on that because it seemed a little bit high. They said that everybody received, or not everybody, but the reported average rate was 20 to 30% increase across the board for everybody. And we have had a claim over the past few years, so that didn't help matters either. The balance, I have balanced it by increasing line number 74, which is our operating reserve. That account balance represents about 2 months of our operating expenses. So that's all I've got for you guys on the updates, just a few changes. Any questions from anybody?
Megan, the insurance, you're referring to like general liability and...
Yes, it's our general liability for Board of Adjustments, for you guys, the Planning Commission, and just our general office liability insurance, yeah. It also does include our vehicles as well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Any other questions? Thank you for, as always, very thorough. Commissioners would call for a... well, we've asked for questions. Would call for a motion, please, to approve the budget.
So moved.
Commissioner Volker?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Bollinger?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Drain?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Graham?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Ritchie?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shaw?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Vitale?
Yes, sir.
Chair Warren?
Yes, sir. The motion is approved. The budget is approved. Thank you. Commissioners, item number 2, under new business, you have the 3 letters of credit and performance bonds. Are there any questions? All right, hearing none, we call for a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Volker?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Bollinger?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Drain?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Graham?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Ritchie?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shaw?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Vitale?
Yes, sir.
Chair Warren?
Yes, sir. The credit and performance bonds are approved. We have one more business item before we get into our public hearing tonight. Megan?
All right, I've got a budget memo for the copier in your packets. So there's a couple different things that we need to look at when purchasing the copier. The best way that I knew is our initial total, or the initial cost that it's going to cost us to purchase the copier, but then also the maintenance over the next few years, or actually 5 years for this copier. So I put together a spreadsheet for you guys on the second page that shows you the initial cost of the copier, the cost of the copies based on our averages that we've had for the past couple years, and then also the service contract fee. Advanced Document Solutions came in the cheapest at $27,909. But if you notice, their copier is 55 sheets a minute and does a 60 sheet stapler capacity. And it's a Xerox C8155. That might be a great copier. But we currently have been using the Konica Minolta BizHub. We've had excellent use, or excellent track record with it for the past 5 to 6 years. And it actually is faster and has better capability. It is $300 more, though, by my projections. So it is not the cheapest copier. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys have. My recommendation would be to go with Lang. We have worked with them in the past, had great luck with them as well. And this keeps us with the copier that we've had really good luck with over the past 5 to 6 years, too.
Thank you. Any questions for Megan regarding that?
Megan, there's a blank for the service contract under the Lang. Does it include?
There is no service contract with Lang. There is no monthly fee with them.
But it is covered for the 5-year
Yep.
term. Okay, very good.
This
Yep.
is a 5-year comparison.
It's a 5-year comparison, yeah. That was the best way that I knew to do it for you guys to show, because we typically get about 5 years out of the copier. And if you don't include the cost of the copies, as you guys see, that's more expensive than the copier itself. If you don't include both of those, you don't get the whole picture there.
It may not be the cheapest, but it's not the most expensive.
Yeah, it's not, definitely.
Any other questions? Commissioners would call for a motion to purchase this copier from Lang as Megan has recommended, excuse me.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, guys.
Commissioner Volker,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Bollinger,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Drain,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Ritchie,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shaw,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Vitale,
Yes, sir.
Chair Warren.
Thank you. Motion's approved. Mr. Peterson, any old business?
No, sir.
All right, we'll now enter into our public hearing. Mr. Moore?
Thank you, Mr. Warren. I request that you order that the record tonight include all relevant statutory and regulatory provisions, the commission's entire file for each application, and the qualifications of each of the staff witnesses. And finally, I'd ask that you administer the oath to those witnesses.
You all swear to tell the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, our first item tonight is Ralph R. and LaShield Thompson have filed an application to amend the general development plan conditions for 5+ acres located at 0206 and 240 W.G. Talley Road, approximately 195 feet east of Alvaton Scottsville Road. The area is subject to this application is currently zoned RE residential state with the general development plan.
Thank
Amy?
you, Mr. Chair. Let me cue this up here.
You should be good.
I think it's under window. Full screen.
I think I just messed it up. Here we go. We had a pre-app meeting for the property that you mentioned on May 7th. So the current zoning is RE. Current land use is single-family residential and vacant, and the future land use is low-density residential. and the applicant supplied a site plan, and that can be found on page 6 for your reference. Again, the applicants are proposing to amend the development plan for 3 lots on WG Talley Road. The main purpose of this application is to amend the home size and material restrictions for the residential structures that are within that development. Looking down at the development history, agriculture is the original zoning for the properties. The area subject to the development plan amendment was rezoned to RE in 2018, so for your reference. If we look over at page 2 and 3 under the development plan conditions, I can point out exactly what they're proposing to do. Number 2, they're looking to change the minimum home size from 1,800 square feet to 1,600 square feet of heated and living space. And then looking over at page number 3, for number 6, they are looking to strike brick veneers and then add fiber cement siding or vinyl, and also adding building foundation shall not include exposed block. So those are the two changes that they're proposing. Looking over at page 1, the proposal complies with majority of the criteria assessed in the review process, remains consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan, and is generally compatible with the surrounding area. Therefore, the staff recommendation is approval, pending any public hearing, testimony, and discussion. That's all we have for a staff report. Be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, any questions?
I would imagine this is strictly because of cost to build.
Correct.
Okay.
And the other, in the report, it said that all the houses on either side of them are vinyl?
I think one was brick but the other 2 property owners had to sign the application, and so there was no issue with reducing the square footage or adding the vinyl to that. There was no issue with those that were affected by, that were included in this DPC.
But there's not, on number 6, there's not a percentage of vinyl or fiber cement siding. They have not addressed that.
They did not add a percentage
Okay.
for that.
All right.
Also, could we say the same for the foundations, exposed block foundations?
Building foundations should not be included exposed block.
Yeah, so surrounding properties, do they?
Oh, sure, yeah, so if we look at the building materials review on there, let's see here. So a majority of our brick, but then they're looking at adding fiber cement or vinyl there. I don't think we have the surrounding.
For the foundations alone?
We drove out that area.
Yeah.
And most of the homes either have brick or stone foundations.
Okay.
But the way this is worded, it would prohibit any type of block. So you may want to ask the applicant what they're planning
Got it.
to do. They at least did agree to prohibit the block, though, as a visible material.
I see. So I may be misreading this. It says, okay, so they're saying it would not include exposed block
Right.
foundations.
Building foundation shall not include exposed brick.
Got it.
Or exposed block.
Okay, so help me understand the contradiction. Building foundation. So in 6, they're addressing exterior, then they switch down to the foundation in that same DPC. Is that right? Am I reading that right?
Correct.
Correct. So they're striking brick veneers. So all homes it will read, all homes shall have brick, stone, fiber cement siding, or vinyl exteriors, period. Building foundation shall not include exposed block.
Got it, very good. Thank
Yep.
you.
You're welcome.
Commissioners, any other questions? For Amy? What? Okay. I thought somebody said something, excuse me. Is the applicant here or the representative, anything they would like to add? Yes, sir, if you would come to... Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone or commissioners, do you all have any questions for the applicant? Excuse me. All right, thank you, sir. Is there anyone in the audience tonight that has a question or an opposition to this request? Okay, hearing none, would call for a motion, please.
I'll make the
a motion to approve the proposed general development plan amendment docket number 2024-06DP. Based upon the testimony and documents presented in this public hearing, the proposed general development plan amendment is consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comp plan as demonstrated by its compliance with the objectives and action items presented in the staff report. Further, I also find that there have been major changes of an economic, physical, or social nature within the area of the property in question, and I request that the findings of fact and recommendation include a summary of the evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at this public hearing.
Second.
Commissioner Drain,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shaw,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Vitale,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Volkert,
Yes, sir.
Chair Warren.
Yes, sir. The motion is approved and is a Planning Commission final action. Our next item tonight is 2023 Z County J.R.R. Head Street Trust, care of Jeremy Riggs, has filed an application to rezone 75.93 acres located on the west side of Head Street, located at the intersection of Head Street and West First Street from Ag to RS1C, single-family residential, with a general development plan. The commissioners, this will be Commissioners Drain, Graham, Volkert, and Ritchie. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Warren. We had a pre-application meeting back in January for the property on Hedge Street, and the applicants are proposing to rezone the property in order to develop the property with a maximum of 265 single-family residential lots. This is the aerial view of the property, and the current zoning is agriculture, and the current use is also agriculture. And then the future land use map is actually split, so it's partially low-density residential and also mixed-use residential. In reviewing the application, we did find that the application complied with the majority of the criteria that we assessed in the review process, and we found the application to be generally compatible with the surrounding area. We do have a couple of points for your consideration. I will touch on page 2, looking at prime farmland. We have noted that a majority of the area proposed to be rezoned is classified as prime farmland. And then looking at page 3, touching on open space, the maximum lot coverage that's permitted in the proposed RS1C zone is 70%, meaning that a minimum of 30% of each lot would remain as open space. And then you'll see that there are some lots that are designated in a darker shade of green. Whoops, I'm going the wrong way. Sorry. What just happened? There we go. Oh, okay. So the darker green, those lots, there's a proposal that those would follow the RS1B development standards for 20% of the homes in the subdivision, and in this area, the minimum open space requirement would be 40%. The applicants have not proposed any formal open space areas or amenities that will serve the site, and the Planning Commission should determine if the open space provided is adequate and of scenic or ecological value, and if the application complies with LU 2.1.1. Those were just the couple of items that we wanted to highlight for your consideration, but our recommendation is for approval pending any public hearing testimony and discussion. Be happy to answer any questions.
Rachel, how many lots are they proposing?
There's a maximum of 265 lots.
So, Rachel, is this exclusive of the school?
That is not part of this application.
So the school is not part of the application?
Correct.
Okay.
Rachel, on page 2, it states that within a fourth of a mile, the densities range from 0 to 17.40.
Mm-hmm.
Where is that acre that has 17 point?
I don't know if it's on the land use map. It would be hard to pinpoint, but it's going to be one of the smaller lots that are in the actual city of Smiths Grove. It's not that there's 17 units on 1 acre. It's just that because of the size of the lot, that even if there's one home, if it's a smaller piece of property, the density would calculate to be higher.
Rachel, was there any discussion with the application about not having all vinyl? Because if I read correctly, they could have all vinyl.
Yeah, they could have all vinyl, and if we look under building materials on page 3, we've noted that a majority of the homes in the area do have vinyl exteriors.
Okay,
So that would be consistent with the homes that are currently in the area.
okay.
Rachel, one other question. So this application, they do not have sewer connected to this?
Not currently, but if this were to move forward, they would have to extend the sewer to serve the site.
Gotcha.
Or wait till the school brings it.
Yeah, either or.
Okay,
Either way, it has to be present before they could develop the
Sure.
land.
okay.
And on the first page, it talks about the infrastructure not being supportive of the proposed development, but it goes on to say that adequate infrastructure must be provided before it can begin. Would you define adequate?
Adequate meaning adequate water, adequate sewer. There are also proposed improvements to Hedge Street. Those are outlined on page number 4 of your staff report. Our staff met with the Warren County Public Works staff, City of Smiths Grove representatives, and the applicants, and we talked through several transportation-related items, and as a result of that meeting, the requirements, there's 3 bullet points there on page 4. Those are the requirements that came out of that discussion, and the applicants have agreed to all of those.
Are they still just planning one exit onto Hedge Street for the properties?
Yes, if we go back to the concept plan, there's just one entrance right here. And then there are also stub streets proposed to the north and to the west. So if any of the adjacent land were to develop, they would connect with those properties as well.
Is it true that the sewer would have to be connected from behind McDonald's under the railroad track to the property?
That's my understanding, yes.
And have they talked with CSX to know how that?
I'm not sure. You could ask the applicant.
All right, for commissioners, any other questions for Ms. Hurd? Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Is the applicant or the representative here?
Mr. Chairman. Tad Pardue, 1010 College Street. I swear to tell the truth.
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, everybody. Once again, it's a pleasure to be before you this evening. I represent the applicant here, which is JRR Hedge Street Trust. That is essentially Jeremy Riggs. Jeremy Riggs is here with me. If you'll just kind of wave your hand, that's Jeremy. So Jeremy's a developer. He's based out of Gallatin, Tennessee. He's done a number of developments down in that area and around Nashville, both commercial and residential. Jeremy was fortunate enough to marry into Warren County. His wife, Erin, was born and raised here in Warren County, and this property that we're talking about this evening was in his wife's name, or wife's family's name for a number of years. So being that he develops for a living, he has done his research, and he has identified this as the perfect spot for the type of development that he's come before you all this evening to present. What I'd like to do for the benefit, not only for just you, the commissioners, but also for perhaps the audience, I'd like to address head-on the review criteria that you all, as commissioners, are to consider when you vote on this proposal this evening. And I think the way I want to do that is maybe ask the staff a few questions. I think that lucky person is probably Ms. Hurd, as we've worked alongside her and with her from the time of the pre-app to this evening. So I understand she's already sworn. Would it be appropriate for me to go ahead and ask her a few questions?
Sure. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So, Ms. Hurd, I want to, again, focus on the review criteria, one of which is the future land use map. And it's my understanding that the future land use map identifies this property as both low-density residential and mixed-use residential, is that right?
That's correct.
And the proposal here, which is an RS1C development with 20% of the lots developed pursuant to RS1B standards, is, as the staff report indicates on page 5, it's in compliance with the future land use map.
Correct.
So this rezoning application and this proposed development brought before the commission this evening complies with what the future land use map would envision as the use of this property into the future.
Yes.
Okay. So that having been satisfied, I'd like to talk about the comprehensive plan or the issue of compatibility. The staff, in conjunction with Warren County Public Works and the City of Smiths Grove, did a traffic review as it relates to this proposal. Is that right?
Yes.
And you touched on it a minute ago in response to Commissioner Ritchie's questions. There was a meeting that was held in May, I believe, to discuss potential traffic implications. Is that right?
Yes. I was trying to find the date of the meeting, the week of May 13th, yes.
And those that had a seat at the table at that meeting were the applicant, the Planning Commission staff, Warren County Public Works, and the City of Smiths Grove. Is that right?
Yes.
And because this proposed development doesn't have any impact on the state road, Transportation Cabinet wasn't there.
Correct.
But all of the players who would be impacted by traffic had a seat at the table at that meeting.
Yes.
And from that meeting, there was an agreement reached that in lieu of a traffic impact study, the developer could commit or to agree to make certain traffic improvements as a condition or a development plan condition attached to this proposal. Is that right?
Yes.
And the developer, in fact, agreed to all of those.
Yes.
And those are set forth in the development plan conditions that the developer has signed and submitted.
That is correct.
Now, as far as site design and compatibility, as part of that review, I believe the staff did look at density. Is that right?
We did.
And I think if I read the staff report correctly, the staff looked at density of areas within a quarter-mile radius of this property.
Yes.
And did the staff, as a result of that review, determine that the density of what is proposed this evening complies with what the comprehensive plan would say is consistent with the residential areas around it?
It does.
Now, in terms of surrounding land uses as they currently exist, are there land uses adjacent to this proposed development that are consistent with what is in this proposed development that is single family?
Yes, there are single-family uses. If we go back to the land use map, sorry, other way. Yep, keep going. Yep. Oh, one more. There we go. So the yellow properties, those are single-family residential uses. So you can see that on the east side of Hedge Street, we've got existing single-family homes. And then on the south side of the railroad, there are also some existing single-family homes.
And those, for lack of a better word, those touch or contiguous to this property, is that right?
Yes.
And while there may currently be properties that are adjacent or contiguous to this property that are used as single-family, there are a number of residential areas that touch this property that are actually zoned for multifamily use, aren't they?
Yes, that is correct.
And those are depicted in what color on the screen?
Those are the red properties.
So those are already zoned and existing multifamily properties.
Yes,
They're just being used currently as single-family.
correct.
And what the applicant proposes this evening, RS1C with a portion developed under RS1B, that would not involve any multifamily, would it?
Correct. It's limited to single-family only.
And multifamily, or RM3, which is what I think these are, that touch this property as a zoning category, that allows for a much more intensive, more dense residential use than what the applicant is proposing. Is that right?
On the face of the zoning, yes.
Yeah. So on the face of the zoning, when the commission tonight looks at compatibility, what's being proposed here this evening on its face would actually be a less intensive zoning designation than the several properties that touch it
Correct.
to the east. Now, as part of its site review, compatibility review, did the staff look at comparing home sizes in this proposed development to home sizes in its vicinity?
We did. That is noted on page 3 of the staff report, and we found that the median home size in the area was 1,104 square feet with an average home size of 1,172 square feet.
So the median in the vicinity was 1,104, and the average home size in the vicinity was 1,172?
Yes.
And the development that's before the commission tonight has development plan conditions that require a minimum home size of 1,250 square feet, is that right?
That's correct.
And that's a minimum, but it's a minimum that is still greater than both the median and the average home size of other homes currently existing in the vicinity.
Yes.
Are there houses, and I'm not sure if the staff reviewed this, but are there existing homes in the immediate vicinity of this proposed development that do not have garages?
That is accurate, yes. A majority of the homes fronting Hedge Street between 6th and 1st do not have a garage.
So you were smart enough to anticipate my next question, and that is it in fact accurate to say that a majority of the homes currently in the vicinity of the proposed development do not have a garage or a carport?
Correct.
And the developer here has committed to garages attached to every single home, is that right?
Yes.
And then perhaps a little bit to Commissioner Volkert's question, as far as building materials go, what did the staff determine were the building materials of homes in the immediate vicinity of this proposed development?
In the immediate vicinity, a majority of homes have vinyl exteriors. There are a couple of homes that utilize aluminum siding and a couple of homes that have brick exteriors.
And then as far as foundation materials, were there numerous homes also in the vicinity of the proposed development that had either plain face or split face block foundations?
Yes, we've noted that 50% of homes in the vicinity have plain face block foundations, and then the remaining 50% were a mix of split face block, brick, stone, poured concrete, or post and pier.
And were those plain face and split face block foundations visible from the street?
Yes.
So now, again, sticking with compatibility and turning to the proposed development, are the building materials set out by the applicant in this case, which are allowable on the homes in this development, consistent with, if not of greater quality than the building materials of the homes in the vicinity?
Yes, they are consistent with what is in the area.
And as for foundations, the applicant in this situation has provided for no split face or plain face block foundations visible from the street, is that right?
Yes.
Are there residential areas in the immediate vicinity of this one proposed this evening that don't have any sidewalks?
There are, let's see. I believe Orion, Sunset, and Post Office Alley do not have any sidewalks.
And with what's proposed here this evening, as required by the subdivision regulations, it would contain sidewalks throughout the entire development on both sides of the street?
Correct, that is required.
And then finally, in terms of orientation of the homes and screening, whether it be on Hedge Street or the streets internal to the development, did the applicant accept and agree to all the recommendations made to it by the staff?
Yes.
On those issues? And then am I correct that when the staff completed its site design and compatibility review, the staff made a determination in finding that the proposed development complied with the majority of the items in that review and was generally compatible with the area?
Yes.
And that, I guess, in part, is the foundation of the staff's recommendation to the commission tonight that this application be approved.
Yes.
So those are all my questions for you, Ms. Hurt. Thank you. I'll just mention a couple other things to the commission and be happy to answer questions. Commissioner Graham, you asked about the school. If you look at what's on the screen, that dark green property just to the north of this one was what you all listened to, heard, and approved. I think it was last month or the month before. That's about a 30-acre tract. So that's the site of a future elementary school, which, you know, in conjunction with the proposed development, would be close enough for children in the proposed development to walk to school. It'll have a state-of-the-art elementary school on it that'll accommodate 800 students with playgrounds, ball fields, recreational areas. In making that point, what I'm trying to convey to the commission is the property that is before you tonight that you're considering is an ideal location for what's proposed. You've heard me walk through with Ms. Hurt practically every element of your review criteria tonight, which she has established and we have established this proposal meets. Everyone, I assume, that listens to or watches the news locally is aware of the housing shortage, in particular the houses in this price range. The proposal before you this evening fits squarely within that hole to fulfill at least part of that demand and part of that shortage. I was in a meeting earlier this week with former Mayor Johnny Webb, and he talked about change and how much change was occurring, has occurred, and will occur in Warren County. He talked about, he rattled off a statistic that there are currently over 7,000 jobs that are available. We have growth in the community, as nobody knows better but you. This is a proposal that is put forth to you tonight with a lot of thought, with a lot of work. We've established that it meets the criteria for which you are to review it. We'll be happy to answer any questions. Mr. Riggs will be happy to answer any questions. I have Brian Shirley here from Arnold Engineering as well. But that's our proposal this evening, and I challenge you as commissioners, if you have questions, really to find any reason under the relevant criteria for which you are to review this application to possibly not approve it. So with that, I thank you for your time, and we respectfully ask for your approval this evening, and we'll take questions.
Thank you, Ted. Commissioners, the commissioners that will be deciding this, you all have any questions for Mr. Pardue?
Tad, I think the only question I have, and it's more maybe of a consideration of your developers, and we've done this in the past with developments of this size, is I personally would like to see some kind of percentage put on these houses that are non-vinyl. I understand that everything in the area is vinyl, but eventually you have to do something different, or it'll always be that way. And I personally would like to see a 25 or 30% non-vinyl on these houses, which usually is the front of the houses. So I know it's something you can talk with your client about.
Okay. If I can have a moment.
Yeah, well, you might see what else there is.
Yeah, that's fine as well.
You have a question?
That's all I have.
So, Tad, I want to go back and revisit a couple of things just to make sure that I completely understand. Currently, both for the school and for this development, there is no sewer there currently. But am I correct in stating that even if this is approved tonight, there has to be sewer there before this development goes forward?
Absolutely.
So we can assume that for the purpose of this development, for this vote, we're to assume that there's sewer readily available because it has to be there in order for the project to move forward, both for the school and for this development. Is that correct?
Or that at the time of development it's there. because they're not going to be able to develop until it is. And-
Yeah,
and-
they
and
can't pull a permit until they're sewer.
Right, and the
That's the
applicant.
easiest way.
Developers recognize that.
Okay.
Same thing with the school district
So
that
they've
was here last
calculated
month.
that into their cost, they understand somehow, they're either in conjunction with the school, or if they go first, then they will bear the cost of installing that sewer. It's not borne by the taxpayers or anything like that, they have to pay for that.
That's right.
They
And to
understand
my
that.
knowledge, I think to Commissioner Ritchie's question, I believe that it's correct that it has to come from the pump station that's behind the McDonald's. Have there been discussions with CSX? I don't believe so. I don't know that there have. That's not to say that Warren County Public Schools may not have had conversations with CSX, or at least had a representative have conversations with CSX. But again, I presume it's not the first time that one would be required to run utilities, including sewer, under a railroad track. But again, that is a condition, to Commissioner Volker's point. In order to pull a permit to begin the development process, they have to have sewer connected, just like the school does to the north.
And even if that pump station that you referred to at McDonald's, let's say it's inadequate, they've got to install a new pump station, is that correct?
At their expense.
Okay, all right, very good, thank you.
Just a couple, Tad, the areas marked in red, I may have missed it, but did you talk about the fact that those are very established neighborhoods, that the houses that have been there for years and years and years that are marked in the red, a lot of those homeowners are here tonight? So did you make that point that those are well-established homes that have been there for?
I didn't make the point, Commissioner Ritchie, but you absolutely did. And we realize and recognize that those homes have been there a very long time and are well established. Really my point mainly was to highlight the fact that those aren't zoned single family.
Right.
So, at least as they're zoned, they would permit multifamily uses. Now, I understand they're not being used that way and haven't probably ever, but they are zoned that way.
Would your client at any point be willing to reduce the number of lots that are currently on the plan?
I'll speak to my client. I don't think so. I do want to highlight this, but I'll confirm that. There is sort of a line of demarcation here, and it's laid out in the development plan conditions pertaining to traffic improvements. There are certain improvements that have to be made before the development can begin. And once those are made, the developer can only go to 100 lots. And as you all probably recognize, 100 residential lots doesn't occur overnight. That takes a long time. If and when the development reaches a point to where it wants to go beyond 100 lots, there have to be substantially more improvements made to the roads and intersections in that area. And the thought there is, by the time you get to that point, you're several years down the road, and you're probably looking at a brand-new state-of-the-art elementary school almost next door. And of course, when the elementary school is built, the Kentucky Department of Education will get involved, and there will be traffic improvements that will be required to be made in conjunction with operating the elementary school. So you've kind of got that 100 lot sort of phase, if you would say. So I mentioned that in response to you asking for a reduction. I'll speak to the developer about the reduction, but we've had that conversation, and I think they are where they are on the total number of lots.
So Tad, if I could follow up on Ms. Ritchie's question, you may need to ask your engineer this. That's the maximum number. I see you don't have any retention basins or anything in your plan now, of course, because you haven't done that kind of engineering. Do they anticipate this is the maximum, obviously, but if they once they put their retention basins in, if they don't have enough room for drainage and et cetera, they would be forced to reduce it.
That's
Is that
correct.
Okay. So this is
And
their utopian, this is the best they hope to get. Is
That's
that
correct. And if you look at the concept plan that's attached to the stat, there are a few areas, I think 3 in particular, that are sort of designated as retention, but, you know,
I see.
like, to your point, you know, that's to be determined when the engineers get involved, and, you know, if, based on the legal requirements and the way the property lays and will be developed, if they have to take more area than that, then the number of lots necessarily gets reduced.
Would you address the sinkholes that are
We-
on the piece of property?
We did, and we put a development plan condition in that specifically requires the developer to work with the local authorities on sinkholes.
When you say work with them, so they would have to mitigate them according to a specific set of criteria?
That's correct.
Okay.
Commissioners, any other questions for Mr. Pardue? David, if you would talk to your client about the 25% that Mr. Volker brought up.
So Commissioner Volkert's proposal is acceptable. It'll be a minimum of 25%. Building materials included with exception of vinyl.
Thank you.
And just, Mr. Riggs just reiterated to me, he's happy to speak if anyone has any questions for him directly, specifically as it relates to what he does or this development in particular. I just wanted the commission to know that he's willing and able to speak in the event he doesn't get an opportunity to.
Let me ask the commissioners, do you all have any questions for Mr. Riggs? Okay, all right. Thank you, Ted.
Thank you.
All right, we need to do the development plan condition.
Would you please call your client forward and ask him to agree to the amendment of his development plan condition?
Get you on the record
That-
agreeing to the change.
So, Mr. Riggs, if you would state your name and address, please, sir.
It's Jeremy Riggs. It's 1078 Sunset Drive, Gallatin, Tennessee.
You swear to tell the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Riggs, you've heard the discussion here this evening and the revision that has been proposed to the development plan conditions, and it would be development plan condition 3, and I think what it would say is all exterior facades of structures on the property will consist of at least 75%?
No,
25%.
25%.
25%.
Okay.
Yeah, brick, stone, ephes, cementitious siding, LP Smart siding, or other modern materials.
Exclusive of vinyl.
Correct. Is that agreeable?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does that cover us, Mr. Moore?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Is there anyone in the audience tonight, or is there a spokesperson for, that would have a question or an opposition to this request? All right. Mr. Steffi, won't you just let David come forward?
My name is David Stiffy. I'm the mayor for the city of Smiths Grove, Kentucky. I reside at 214 Beeler Avenue in Smiths Grove.
Swear to tell the truth, David.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I just want to present to everyone here that we had a meeting right before the last set meeting that was going to come before this board, and of course it got postponed. But we talked about the traffic impact and everything on the area around this development. That being said, I realize the development is not in the city limits of Smiths Grove, but all the exit and entrance traffic will impact immediately our city limits because that's Hedge Street is in the city limits. Hedge Street is about 1.5 car widths wide. It was great back in the horse and buggy day or back when we had small vehicles, but now it's really, really crowded, of course. We call it the bypass for Smiths Grove. But anyway, and this is in a curve area of First and Hedge, and I understand the exit and entrance will be a little further down. But we have tremendous concerns about the amount of traffic that this will put right in the middle of Smiths Grove in this area. We have just a little bit over 450 homes, residential, in the whole city limits of Smiths Grove. So then, this not being in the city, but actually right in next to, adding another 275 homes, we just want everyone to please take into consideration the concern we have for what it's going to do to the area downtown in Smiths Grove. We've had all kinds of concerns about with the Buc-ee's project and other things, but that traffic doesn't impact this downtown area like what this will tremendously. So I appreciate, and we appreciate your consideration to this. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Mr. Mayor?
David?
Yes, sir.
Quick question. Did you guys have the same concerns with the school, the new school going there?
We have, as a matter of fact, I'm glad you brought that up because I should have mentioned. When we had this traffic meeting, I did ask that if worst case scenario, best case scenario, that they could work with the school system about maybe getting the traffic to where Hedge Street is compatible all the way down, which would require quite a bit more right-of-way area to buy and to make the street better for the developer. The thing about the school that makes it good that we would like, if we at all could, all the traffic would go one direction to that area. That's at Highway 101 is where the new school is going to be, in the corner of Hedge Street. So the traffic flow in that area is quite a bit better, and of course the school system will do a lot, I'm sure, to work with us on making that area. But that's going to be a lot easier to make that compatible because of the road system. Where this development is, it's on the opposite end of Hedge Street. And it's right now we have difficulties. It runs down beside the post office. It comes out beside our flavor aisle, which we're thankful is busy. But we understand that they're talking about maybe changing and making some traffic, changes to make it better, and on some of the other streets like 3rd Street. But everything is so landlocked in those areas because of, as Mrs. Ritchie pointed out, the houses have been there for years and they're right close to the street. So the only way to really make the Hedge Street better and wider is to go pretty much the whole length and to try to get a right-of-way on some more property owners to be able to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I could follow up on that, do I understand you to say that the traffic, you guys had this meeting and you had a discussion about the traffic?
Yes.
And did you guys anticipate the improvements that they're about to make because of the school, or are you looking at it as it is currently? And the second part of my question is, did I just understand you to say that the improvements would happen only at the school and the road that appears to be just right next door to the school, that those improvements wouldn't help this development?
Well, we don't know exactly what the plan is for the school, but see, the school is on the opposite end of Hedge Street of where this development is. So it could end up being, I hope I answer your question, it could end up being two separate areas to try to work out. The school system is going to be down in the curve there at 101, the state highway. So it's a lot more accessible. There's not, the road frontage and everything is better there. Down on the other end, we're talking about the development. They're not really tied together, but I was hoping that there might be consideration where we could work something. But in this meeting, basically it was agreed upon that if people are used to going the shortest route, it's very hard to divert them to take a longer route, like to go the other end of Head Street to come out on the area where we hope to have better road improvements.
While we have you there, I want to make sure that I understand. Could you flip back to when Tad had a slide up there, and if I understood correctly, the school and this development, they're right next door to each other. And what I hear you describing is further apart.
Well, the school property, in which you all did approve at the last meeting I was here at, it is on the end. If Head Street, we'll say it runs north and south, the school would be on the very north end of Head Street at 6th Street or Highway 101, Kentucky Highway 101. This development is on the south end of Head Street in the curve at 1st Street and Head Street. So they're a few, they're not side by side. There's quite a bit of property between them.
So the picture they have, or the map that they have up on the screen right now, is the red rectangle this proposed development, and the green rectangle, is that the school, or am I misunderstanding something?
Mr. Peterson's going to bail me out.
Very
here.
good, that's
Thank
fine. And if somebody just take a laser and point to them so we could understand.
So we'll follow the hand here, and please correct me if I get this wrong, but if you're coming down, this is the state highway, down this section of Head Street.
Right.
And then you see the curves. So the main road then curves this way and then curves, or I guess it's a right turn or whatever, goes down Main Street here. So this is actually the highway that I'm tracing there.
I see, okay.
And then here is the school property where the school's going to get built. So they're anticipating, I believe what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the school's main improvements will be up here on this main highway where this curve is.
I see.
It will be changed to a stop condition or something safer there. Where this development is here, down here, continues then along the, I guess, the narrower, not quite, it's not the state highway, it's the city of Smiths Grove's property. And you can see where the street is here that we were talking about, the other section of Head Street that then comes by the post office, correct, and then comes into Main Street. So it's really this section here that is not the state road, that is their main concern.
I see, okay.
So their question is, where's the traffic going to come out of that main entrance here? Where's it going and what improvements are there?
Got it,
So
all right,
hopefully
very good.
that clarifies.
Ben,
Thank you.
could you show the map of the development? Because I want to make sure I understand the entrance to the development is in the curve
Correct.
that goes on down in front of the post office.
That is-
So the entrance is going to be in that curve.
It will, it's, if I'm, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they believe the condition that was agreed upon was that would become then a stop condition. It wouldn't be a curve, but traffic would have some sort of signaling there along with the improvements that are outlined in the staff report, so there would be stop conditions. It wouldn't be continuous traffic flow anymore.
Just to clarify, the requirement's not necessarily like for a stop sign, it's just that it would be improved, whether that be a roundabout or stop sign, something. Yeah.
Yes, and Ms. Hurd, I'm glad you brought that up. That was another thing that they mentioned that suggested a roundabout, but it's, of course, with the roundabout, it's going to take up quite a bit of the property space to be able to do it. And I do apologize if there was any confusion on the
No,
location.
I just want to make sure I understood your
Yes.
description. Once he pointed out, I understand what you're talking about, yeah.
I usually have to rely on them to bail me out. so
Understood,
thank-
as do I, yes, as do I, yes.
Thank you, David. Any
Thank
other
you.
questions for David? All right.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else tonight who's here that has a question? I think we've done pretty good on the traffic. Another matter besides the traffic? Yes, ma'am, if you'll come to the microphone. Just remember your name and address, please.
Laura Peppers, 117 Emerald Court in Smiths Grove.
All right, you swear to tell the truth?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am, your question?
My only concern in it is regarding traffic. I think this is a little, I don't understand it. The potential egress on the north side would be going into school property. I don't know, because the school is close by, so I don't really see that as,
No,
my
ma'am.
imagination doesn't go there to see that as a potential egress in the future.
I think that is a stub street.
A stub street, okay.
If something is built between the neighborhood and the school, if something else comes there, it would connect.
Gotcha.
And that's not something that we can say, let's not do that.
Sure. And
Okay.
my other concern is with traffic, because if you drive through Smiths Grove, you see a lot of the other signs that saying future developments, which is going to add additional traffic to the roads in Smiths Grove. And as Mayor Stiffy said, that it is kind of limited, and the more development we have, I just want to make sure that everyone's acting in concert and improving the road system, because the traffic with this number of homes is going to add traffic in front of the post office. With the other potential developments coming in, that's going to add more traffic going to this new school. So I would just like the commission to consider all the potential developments that are coming to Smiths Grove and keep those things in mind.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else beside, we'll listen to everybody, but I think we've done traffic. Is there something else that someone would like to bring up? Yes, ma'am? Yes, ma'am, your name and address, please.
My name is Monica Wardlow.
Okay.
I live at 214 First Street and also own a lot on 248 Head Street.
You swear to tell the truth.
Swear to tell the truth.
Thank you.
And I know you said that you've done traffic. My concern, like I said, I wish there would be consideration for a lower number of houses in that area, because it all still backs up to traffic. And, you know, the statement was made that all the players that are directly impacted by the traffic were at the meeting. I live right there in that curve. There's a numerous amount of times the police are there. There's been times where my husband and I have gone out to help those that have had accidents because of how narrow it is. And we said that, you know, that the lane itself actually holds 1.5 cars. Anytime that you build a house, especially one if it's going to be in the 2-something price range, even though that is a low to moderate house, you're going to have probably more than one driver, probably more than one car. So that's still a lot more cars in that area. I'd like to talk about the aesthetics of Smiths Grove. We moved in that area. We own property in that area for some time. We chose Smiths Grove. It didn't choose us because of the small town feel, but you still had things that you needed. The post office, places to eat, its walkability, the aesthetics of it, knowing people. And we know that growth is inevitable. We want growth because we want to keep our young people here and working. But even the housing shortage that we have, it's something that the city and the county have to take on. So it's not that we here sitting today are against development or against growth, but I think that there's a right way to grow. Also, just because something meets all of the qualifications, if you look over the history of the United States of America, there are a lot of things that could be done due to the rules and regulations, and that were inside the rules and regulations, but it didn't make it to be the right thing to do. So it is just my opinion that I think it would be a lot easier to swallow if there weren't as many homes being built in that area, and definitely that we address the whole Hedge Street, because like I said, I'm directly affected by that, because my house is right there, garage is in the front, and on the side, there's cars parked there, and we constantly see issues.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
All right. So we've talked about traffic, and Ms. Wardlow brought up the aesthetics and the community of Smiths Grove. Is there someone else that has something different than traffic and aesthetics? And yes, sir. We've also discussed the density. Yes, sir. Your name and address, please.
My name is Ron Davis, 110 North Main Street, Smiths Grove.
All right, Mr. Davis. You swear to tell the truth.
Oh, yes.
Yes, thank you.
Also, traffic is a big issue. It's going to be because all it's going to dump into Main Street. And I know Mayor Stiffy said that he didn't notice a large traffic increase from Buc-ee's. I've noticed it's at least doubled. I live right on Main Street. That's one thing. The other thing is the busing for all these new houses. I know the school, and the gentleman said that they could just walk to school, but the school that's there now on College Street, there's a lot of traffic there, but the busing is, I saw they picked up a kid, went a block, and dropped him off. So I don't see no kids walking in the street. It's like busing. So there's some infrastructure there, issues that are, that need to be looked at. Also, too, this is an old town, horse and buggy. You can't really widen the streets a whole lot unless you start taking people's property. And this is going to increase a lot of population and traffic. It's going to be a big thing.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Is there anyone else, any different comments? Yes, ma'am. Something different. Okay, your name and address, please.
My name is Kelly Dutton. I live at 103 Sunset Avenue.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Dutton, you swear to tell the truth.
I swear.
Okay.
So my property is on the corner of First and Sunset Street. I own a salon, and I live above the salon. So I work and live there. If that First Street ends up needing to be widened, I have about 2 feet from the street to my building on the corner, and my overhang is less than that. So if that road needs to get used, and it will, because if they come out of that subdivision, they're going to go right or they're going to go left. And if they go right, they have only one way to go, and that's down Hedge Street, and it curves around and goes up First, right next to the post office. There's 2 historic homes on the other side of me. My building was actually the carriage house to one of the first homes in Smiths Grove, which is across the street on First. And then the house next to it is just as old. We're talking 1800s homes here. And if you guys if they want to take roads, I'm concerned about eminent domain. I'm literally 2 feet from the street. That is a real concern for me. I live there and I work there. And I provide something to the community. So that's a big thing for me.
All right,
So, and just the aesthetic too. The town is so nice, the way that it is. I think it would be nice to have growth done the right way with much less housing. There's only 800 people, give or take, in Smiths Grove. If you put 4 people in a home and only put 200 homes, that's 1,000 people increase just like that. And that's not the only development in play here. So let's just please keep that in mind.
Thank you very much.
You're very
All
welcome.
right.
Thank you.
Okay. I think we've heard, is there, Commissioners, any other questions before we call for a vote, please?
I would like to say something, if we can get Mr. Perdue maybe. I know that it's been brought up here with the commissioners, but is your client willing to reduce the amount of homes he's wanting to put in here?
Not at this time.
And again, I'll go back to the point I made earlier about the phasing. I mean, right now, there's a requirement that improvements be made to the intersection of Hedge and First. That came as a result of a meeting that we had both with the city and with Warren County Public Works. Those improvements have to be made in order for the first 100 lots to be developed. And then the development plan conditions require that if this development gets to a point where it exceeds 100 lots, there have to be substantially more improvements made, which bring in the rest of Hedge and even Fourth. And again, from a practical standpoint, we're probably talking about years, and we're probably talking about a brand-new 800-student elementary school being built there too. And when those things are done, the state will come in and require the school district, they'll do a study, and if there are going to be school buses going up and down Hedge Street, both to the north and to the south, they're going to require substantial improvements to Hedge Street. But again, let's just assume the school is never built. There are development plan conditions which require this developer to improve that intersection in order to begin development. And then once they reach the 100 lot threshold, they are required to complete substantially more traffic improvements as well. And then again, to Commissioner Graham's point, that the number of lots is a maximum. There may not be that many lots when they
But do you guys have an idea of really how many lots you really believe there will be?
Can I speak?
Come on up, Jeremy. So you would know before I would anyway.
Sorry, I've laid this out about 5 different times, and the reason that we're at this number right now, for economics to work on it, this is probably at the, and I don't want to say this because I don't know how valid this could be, 10% waste because of sinkholes, road infrastructure. So we have to go for the density that we can so that we can absorb everything we can to keep the lot pricing to where we can afford to actually do it. So the reason I'm not trying to put more houses in there that need to go there, I'm trying to actually get it to where we can go through engineering, all of the other processes to make sure it's even viable to do it. And if I go in before, and I can't even get that many, then realistically, the house prices will continue to go up, and then they're not affordable anymore. So, and I do this every day. I'm doing 600 lots in Westmoreland, Tennessee. So I have gone through the same process, just so y'all understand, 250 lots. I'm under contract with Wall Street Banks doing this stuff up in this Westmoreland project. It's an 8-year project for them. They're taking 60 lots at a time, and that was not what we're designing here. Again, I have to go home to my wife who grew up in this farm. She is not excited about this turning into anything like that. Now, if anybody in Smiths Grove wants to build on these lots, hopefully they can. But my challenge, my challenge with it is I want to make sure that everybody understands is the reason there's a density there is to try to keep the cost down. We build, we try, and we build ourselves. We try to keep the cost down. Vinyl siding, I'm with you. I can actually build brick that cheap as I can vinyl right now. So if I was building every house in there, chances are they'll be brick because it's the same cost at this point. So I just can't guarantee that on paper that I can do that because I may not build every one of these. So that's just what I wanted to say.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pardue. All right, Commissioners, appreciate everybody's input tonight and would call for a motion from, we have 4 votes, Drain, Graham, Volkert, and Ritchie.
I make the motion to deny the proposed zoning map amendment docket number 2024-23Z County. Based upon the testimony and documents presented in this public hearing, the proposed zoning map amendment is not consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by its non-compliance with the objective and action items presented in the staff report. Therefore, the proposed zoning map amendment is not in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further, I request that this motion include the summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at the public hearing, and I fully believe this is not compatible to our town.
Okay, Mr. Moore.
There's a motion on the floor, and I guess we await a second.
Is there a second to Mrs. Ritchie's denial?
Second.
Okay. So then.
So now, There has been a motion and a second to deny this zone change application. So you've got to, the four of you who are going to have the opportunity to vote, have to keep clear in your mind that yes, a vote of yes equals deny. A vote of no would indicate your willingness to approve it. Yes equals deny, no equals approval.
Matthew?
Commissioner Ritchie,
Yes.
Commissioner Volkert,
No.
Commissioner Drain,
Yes.
Commissioner Graham.
No.
So, ladies and gentlemen, there is a tie vote. The tie vote is on a motion to deny. So, without further action, you can't make a recommendation without passing either an approval or a denial motion. You have the option to try to re-vote if that's something that you'd like to do. Sometimes you have tried to see if you can get a motion to approve passed. It'll require obviously 3 votes in favor of either motion in order to make a recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. So
Dean, can we have Tad come back up? Can we ask another question or two of Tad?
Yes?
So Tad, sir, I figured that'd be the vote. So I'm gonna go back to the questions that Amy and Debbie asked. Are y'all willing to decrease the density? I mean, I think we all know from seeing developments and I mean, you're not gonna get 265. I mean, if you get it, you're not gonna get 265 time you get in there and do it. So my question is, would you be willing to go to 200?
Even at 265,
You're probably gonna get 230 to 240.
right, I guess, and the point I would make is that even at 265, and we heard the testimony from Rachel, that our density is right within what the comprehensive plan says it should be.
Oh, I don't doubt it is, but I'm just telling you, you've got a 2-2 vote.
I understand.
And if, I'm gonna say if density doesn't get changed, you don't have a chance for approval tonight.
Yeah, let me talk to my client. Thank you.
When is the school supposed to do that?
Okay, I've spoken with Mr. Riggs, and where we currently stand is at a density of 249
I thought we were 265.
265, density of 3.49 dwelling units per acre. Mr. Riggs is willing this evening to commit to reducing that maximum number of lots to 230, and that would bring the density down to right at 3 dwelling units an acre.
Would you bring him forward?
Mr. Riggs, you-
You're still under oath, Jeremy. You've heard the discussion. Find the development plan condition.
It's number 2.
You're right. So the way it currently reads is that the property will be developed with a maximum of 265 single-family lots. Are you willing to agree to change that or revise that to say the property will be developed with a maximum of 230 single-family lots?
Yes, sir.
Same percentage, 20% of those will be designed pursuant to RS1B standards.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
okay. Got that, Mr. Moore?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
So,
I have a clarification, if I might ask this. As far as the lot size goes for RS1C and RS1B, I realize the setback is 25 feet, but is the side yard 7.5 feet and the backyard 10 feet?
Yes.
Correct.
thank you, Rachel. Okay, so we have a development plan condition of maximum of 230, nothing else, 230 lots, nothing else has changed. And would any commissioner like to make a new recommendation?
I'll make a motion to approve this time based on the new number of lots. So I make a motion to approve the proposed zoning map amendment together with and conditioned upon the general development plan, docket number 2024-23 Z County. Based upon the testimony and documents presented in this public hearing, the proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by its compliance with the objectives and action items presented in the staff report. Therefore, the proposed zoning map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further, I request that this motion include a summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at this public hearing.
Is there a second? Second for approval.
Can I ask a question first?
Yes, sir.
Hamp, so if we have a 2-2 vote again, and we don't have, nothing's going to happen tonight, does that allow the developer to make their changes and bring it back at some point without it being a denial?
If we persist with a 2-2 vote, a tie vote, the application would go forward to the fiscal court with no recommendation, neither to approve or deny. One, that would require the fiscal court to have some sort of hearing as opposed to having your action be final action. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
If I can answer maybe the second part, help answer that second part of your question is when could they come back?
Yes.
And of course, it'll depend. If they withdrew their application before fiscal court heard or took action on it, then they make substantial changes to their application, they'd be able to come back.
That's on a 2-2 tie, correct?
That's on any vote.
That's on any vote.
And then if they move forward and the action failed at fiscal court, then they would have to wait at least 1 year period of time before they could bring it back.
Okay.
If they fail where?
Fiscal.
At fiscal court. Here or fiscal court either.
So a fail is a tie.
No, a tie vote by this board is no recommendation. We have no recommendation to forward to fiscal court, then that decision gets moved to in the fiscal court's realm, and they would vote yes or no, essentially. And then if that failed, then they would have to wait a year from that final action, assuming no appeals.
And even if we were to pass it, it's still going.
If you pass it, then it would be final action unless within 21 days
Right.
it was requested by any member of the public or the applicant for the fiscal court to hear, or any member of the public.
So one more point of clarification, just to make sure I understand it. But the tie vote still moves it to fiscal court, correct?
A tie vote moves it to fiscal court, and they...
With no
They would
recommendation.
have to decide whether they want to hear it or not.
Interesting. Okay.
There'd just be no recommendation from the planning commission.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor made by Commissioner Graham to approve this zoning map amendment change. Is there a second?
Second.
So now that changes.
Yeah.
There is a motion to approve. A yes vote will be in favor of approving the application recommendation. A no vote will be against the application or in favor of denial. So yes equals approval, no equals denial.
Matthew?
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Ritchie,
No, sir.
Commissioner Volkert,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Drain.
Okay, so we have a tie vote. Do we need to go through this again, Mr. Moore, or just,
Looks like we tried it both ways.
It's up to you.
sounds like we're going to have a tie unless it's just a dramatic change. So I would make the suggestion that this goes to the Warren County Fiscal Court. Unless any commissioners have a comment. All right, thank you. Then this will go to the Warren County Fiscal Court for approval or denial. Thank you all for being here tonight, and we'll go to our next case. Our next case is Woodland Station Development, LLC, care of Kyle Shirley, has filed an application to rezone 30.99 acres located at Rich Pond, Rockfield Road, approximately 600 feet west of White Ash Street, from Ag to RS1D, single-family residential with a general development plan. And Jenny?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a pre-application meeting on May 8th of this year for the property on Rich Pond Rockfield Road. There is their site plan for your all's reference. The current zoning of the property is ag, current land use is agriculture, and then the future land use map designation is low-density residential. Looking to their brief summary, they are proposing to rezone roughly 30.99 acres from ag to RS1D, single-family residential, in order to develop the property with a maximum of 83 lots. Looking down to the bottom of the page, the proposal does comply with the majority of the criteria assessed in the review process and is generally compatible with the surrounding area. However, staff has noted considerations relating to open space, which we can look over to page 3 for that information. The applicants have proposed a minimum of 30% open space in DPC number 2 for lots adjacent to South Oaks or South Haven subdivisions. The development as a whole will contain a minimum of 40% open space, and that's clarified in DPC number 12. Sidewalks are required on both sides of the street. However, the applicants have not proposed any formal open space areas or amenities that will serve the site, and with that, the Planning Commission should determine if the amount of open space provided is adequate and of scenic or ecological value, and if the application complies with LU 2.1.1. With that consideration noted, staff's recommendation is for approval pending public hearing testimony and discussion tonight. And that's all that I have, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions for staff, for Jenny?
You mentioned the open space. Do the adjoining subdivisions have a different open space criteria?
The adjoining
Or in the area?
subdivisions, I'm sorry?
Either adjoining or in the area?
It's not clarified in the staff report what the adjacent subdivisions would have necessarily. It may have been mentioned in the pre-app notes, and we can look over to page 19 for those. It is
When we
not-
refer to open space, we're referring to like some sort of park or something?
So open space is, there's two types of open space. So there's individual open space within a single lot, and then there's development as a whole open space. And so they've clarified both of those measurements in their DPCs. And so the 30% is a specification for lots adjacent to South Haven and South Oaks. The rest of the subdivision will meet the minimum open space per lot required in the RS1D zone, which is 25%.
Okay, so I may have misunderstood. I thought one of the considerations was lack of open space or amenities. Did I misunderstand that?
No, you did not misunderstand that. That's relating to the development as a whole.
As a whole, got
So
it.
they've specified that the development as a whole will contain a minimum of 40% open space, but they have not specified any formal open space areas or specific amenities that will serve the site. So they've provided a percentage, but they have not specified those further criteria.
So if my math is correct, they're setting aside an additional 10% roughly?
Well, that could be contained within those individual
Oh, so you could just make the lots
Yes.
larger and not have like open space for the entire neighborhood? is that
Right,
what you're
yes.
saying? Okay.
And I guess just to clarify, the open space consideration relates specifically to action item LU 2.1.1. And that actually evaluates whether or not the open space provided within the development is adequate and of scenic or ecological value.
Got it. All
And
right.
so that's for your consideration.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Commissioners, any other questions for Jenny? All right, hearing none. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you.
Is the applicant or their representative here?
Good evening, Chair Warren, Commissioners, Chris Davenport, 921 College Street, and I swear to tell the truth.
Thank you, Chris.
I'm here on behalf of Woodland Station Development and their principal, Mr. Kyle Shirley, who is seated here to my right. Mr. John Sewell is the engineer on this project, here with us as well. Let me address the open space question. Commissioner Graham, the adjoining neighborhoods, South Oaks and South Haven, I've pulled and brought with me their development conditions. Actually, South Oaks is titled Binding Elements because it's been zoned that long. But neither South Oaks nor South Haven have a DPC or binding element that addresses open space. For the record, South Oaks is in Deed Book 1158, page 705, and South Haven is in Certificate of Land Use Book 11, page 671. What that means is those properties default to the zoning ordinance minimums of 30% of RS1C. So if I were to kind of highlight the distinguishing factor, in my opinion, of this development, the exterior lots that adjoin those two existing neighborhoods, or at least zoned neighborhoods, I'm not sure the status of South Haven yet. I'm not sure that's built out yet. It's more new. But at any rate, those adjoining properties are RS1C. So what my client has done is they've agreed to RS1C standard on those lots adjoining those properties. And they have agreed to a 30% open space for those specific lots. The intention being we want to basically mirror the size of the lots that are backing up to each other. I think you've heard the staff talk before. We really don't want an existing home that then has 3 lot lines on its backside. We want those to kind of match up in size. The entirety of the property must conform to at least 40% open space. And so if I'm comparing our development request with what's there, we're obligated to more open space. Full stop. Because those developments are obligated to 30% whole for the whole development. We're obligated to 40% whole on our entire development, and specifically 30% on those adjoining lots. I hope that answers the question, and I haven't made it more confusing. But the simple answer is, their open space is tied to the ordinance. They don't have a condition that increases their open space like we've proposed here. With that said, our development is roughly 31 acres, 83 single-family homes. Basically, the middle is the intent to build to RS1D standards. Those outer lots, as we discussed, those lots are required by the condition to be RS1C standards. The request is flume compliant. I'll note on the applicable page of the staff, we've addressed all the policies. The only real question was this open space one that I hope we've addressed. Our proposed density is 2.2 units an acre. That compares favorably to the two existing neighborhoods on either side. South Oaks is at 3.7 units an acre. That's 1 unit denser per acre. South Haven is at 3.37 units an acre. Again, more than 1 unit an acre denser. And we've basically mirrored the design elements. We're at 80% minimum brick, stone, hardy board, same as those developments. Those were, I think, are the highlights of the development. I'm happy to answer any question y'all may have.
So Chris, just help me with my simplistic mind here. I think what you're telling me is those lots that adjoin the other neighborhood are going to be larger lots.
They'll at least be the same size.
At least be the same size, got it.
They are required to the same, they are set to the same standard. Let's put it that way. Same minimum lot sizes, same minimum setbacks, same minimum lot widths.
Got it, okay, all right, very good, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Commissioners, any other questions for Mr. Davenport? All right, thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone in the audience tonight that has a question or an opposition to this request? Yes, sir. If you would come to the microphone, please. You would state your name and address, please.
Hello, Nick Horner, 3159 White Ash Street.
Yes, sir, Nick.
Yeah,
You swear to tell the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I live on lot 14 on the right there, which is on White Ash Street. One thing I'm concerned about is the additional traffic coming down White Ash. We have a problem with people just flying down that road every single day. Working from home today, I counted 8 cars going over 25 miles per hour, and this is going to bring more cars onto there. Another thing I just kind of have to say is, you know, with the construction finally being done in South Oaks, I'm kind of concerned about all the additional construction traffic coming through. And if you're going to connect the neighborhoods on Shadbush, if you could wait till, I don't know, construction's basically done until we open up that road, that would save a lot of headache in our neighborhood.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Staff, would you explain our policy of connecting the subdivisions for?
Sure, yeah, the subdivision regulations, where Shadbush Way is now, that was specifically stubbed into this property for the purposes of future connectivity. I will mention that in previous applications, in some scenarios, the applicant did agree to prohibit construction traffic on those local streets. So that might be something that the applicant would consider in this case as well.
Thank you, sir. All right, before we speak to Mr. Davenport, is there anyone else that has a question regarding this application? Mr. Davenport? Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me, I'm sorry, sir. Come on up here. I apologize. Yes, sir. Your name and address, please.
Eric Ortiz, 3234 Shadbush Way.
Yes, sir. You swear to tell the truth?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So I got a question for the builder. Are they going to use white ash to drive their trucks, construction trucks, to build the future houses? And if they are using that road, that means they're going to ruin the streets that are already there. I used to live in a subdivision where they did the same, and they ruined the streets. They never got it. They never fixed it. Also, I think the previous owner put in consideration children's. There's a lot of children playing on that street, on White Ash. So my concern are the children on that area. I live right on Shadbush, and the damage that they will create if they're going to be coming with heavy trucks, construction equipment, and so forth.
I think that Mr. Shirley and Mr. Davenport have an answer to both of your questions on the construction. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Before we come up, anybody else have a question regarding this tonight or opposition? Mr. Davenport?
It's not Mr. Shirley or his company's intent to, utilize this existing side street as I understand it. So I would propose a new DPC to try to address those concerns. What number are we on here? 14. That would read, all construction ingress and egress shall be served by new streets within the development until such time as the development streets are accepted by Warren County Public Works.
So do you gentlemen understand what they just said? Yeah, no construction trucks will be permitted, okay? All right, thank you. Mr. Shirley, would you come to the microphone?
Kyle Shirley, 356 Stone Meadow Circle. I swear to tell the truth.
Kyle, you've heard?
I agree to Mr. Davenport's stipulation to change the rules.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shirley. Commissioners would call for a motion for this project, please.
I make the motion to approve the proposed zone map amendment together with and conditioned upon the General Development Plan docket number 2024-29ZCO. Based on the testimony and the documents presented in this public hearing, the proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by its compliance with the objectives and action items presented in the staff report. Therefore, the proposed zone map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further, I request this motion include the summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at this public hearing.
Second.
Commissioner Volker?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Drain? Commissioner Graham?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shaw?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Vitale?
Yes, sir.
Chair Warren?
Yes, sir. The motion is approved, and it's Planning Commission final action in 21 days unless a request is made to the legislative body to hear the item. Our next item tonight is 2024-30Z County PS Monty Brown has filed an application to rezone 15.186 acres located at 734, 791, and 871 Plum Springs Road from light industrial, RS1A single-family residential, and RE residential state to highway business with the general development plan. The commissioners that will be hearing this are Drain, Graham, Volkert, and Ballinger.
Thank you, Chair Warren. Before I get started with the staff report, I did want to just mention in your packet that you should have received a letter from a member of the public.
Yes.
So just wanted to note that for your reference. But with that, I'll jump into the staff report. We had a pre-application meeting back in November, as you mentioned, for the property on Plum Springs Road. And the applicant is proposing to rezone the property in order to develop the site with an RV park, campground, and amenities, including an event center. I will mention that this should look familiar to some of you, if not all of you, as there was a future land use map amendment that was before this commission back in May, and the Planning Commission did approve a future land use map amendment for moderate density residential to commercial back in May of this year. This is the aerial view of the property and the zoning map, where you'll see that it's partially zoned RS1A and a small area of light industrial, and then also RE up along Plum Springs Road, and then there's a portion of the site that's in the floodplain. The current use is agriculture and vacant, and again, the future land use map is now currently commercial. In the staff's review of the applicable review criteria in the comprehensive plan, we did find that the application complies with the majority of the criteria that we assessed in the review process and found the proposal to be generally compatible with the surrounding area. And therefore, our recommendation is for approval pending any public hearing testimony and discussion. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, any questions for staff?
So Rachel, I touched on this, I think, at the previous meeting. If we zone this, there's no possibility this can change owners and become just a trailer park or something other than what we've zoned it for. Is that accurate?
Correct. If we look at development plan condition number 2 on page 4, the uses shall be limited to campground, RV park, and events facility. Tent camping shall not be allowed.
Very good. All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, Rachel. Commissioners, any other questions?
Yeah, I know that a lot of people are concerned about safety around the water. Like just, if it's going to be an RV park, I'm assuming there'll be children there from time to time. Are there going to be any safety precautions put in place to keep them away from that water? And then also, too, safety for the actual water itself. It's a blue hole. So is there anything like put in place to keep it pristine and reserved? And like are there anything?
I may let the applicant speak to that. I'm not,
Okay.
I'm not sure
Like the right
of their
time to ask.
specific plans, but I'll let them address that here in
Yeah,
just a
yeah.
bit.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Hurd for staff? All right, thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Is the applicant or their representative here, Mr. Davenport?
Yes, Chair Warren, still under oath. Good evening again. Chris Davenport on behalf of the Monty Brown and the Brown family, who's seated here to my left. Lucas Slavey is the engineer on this project. I think a good number of you all were here in May when the flume was amended, maybe not everybody. So this is going to sound a little bit repetitive to some of you. But the request here is for a campground and RV park that has an event center. We did change the flume in May, and when we were here in May, this is the exact same concept that we had for your deliberation and for your consideration when you were trying to decide, whether this type of development would be compatible and whether that justified amending the flume. So there have been no changes made with one exception, and that is Ms. Hurt pointed out that we didn't have in our concept, we weren't showing any tent camping. And technically that would be allowed with campground use. So the staff had asked that I clarify that, so you'll see that is excluded as a campground use. So to your point, Mr. Graham, the only allowed uses here will really be what you see there. And that's pursuant to the development condition that was suggested by the staff and my clients agreed to. The property sits on about 15 acres. Much of that is within the floodplain, as it's depicted on the concept here. The request, I think, I would point out, the request is from RE, RS1, A, and light industrial to rezone the entire property to HB. That is now flume compliant. A few DPCs I'll note, the requirement in the DPC is a minimum of 60% open space. The developer, my clients, and the owners of the property have limited the structures on the property in size, in height, in amount of occupancy. Those of you that were here for the flume, that was a point that was debated and discussed, what the max occupancy of any of these structures would be. The DPC provides for that now. The structures are limited in location and they're limited in design, primarily up on Plum Springs Road. Any structure up in that part must have a residential, or I think maybe it says agricultural look to it, either residential or agricultural in design. The concept and the DPCs allow for various landscape buffers throughout the property. We have limited signage considerably. I think the sign is limited 5 feet in height, monument sign, monument style, and 25 square feet. Maybe it's 125 square feet. That would make more sense. The accommodations are limited, 33 RV spots and 5 cabins. Rachel, do we have the pictures I sent you? We did get some more illustrations I want to share with you that we did not have in May.
Oh, they're at the end of the PowerPoint?
No,
So this is some work they've had done in the meantime. The first thing I want to point out is obviously this is easier on the eyes than the engine, no offense, Lucas. But secondly, all of the location, the scale, the type of structures, the location of the structures are still the same as the concept. So this is one depiction. This is what we envision that sign looking like that I referred to earlier. The DPC provides for no type of illumination on that, I think. So, and that's just a little bit closer up of the cabins. So the last thing I want to point out, and I know that you did get a letter, I saw that. I'm happy for Mr. Brown to speak to that at some point if you'd like to hear, but the letter that I saw kind of referenced at least what one county resident thought would be a better use of the property, almost more of a philanthropic use of some kind. Mr. Brown tells me over the years he's had a lot of discussions with government officials from the county and different areas about trying to do something along the lines that that gentleman talked about, and frankly, there's just never been any interest in it. He does own the property. He's held it for a long time. He has looked for something that fits on the property, and frankly, given the unique physical characteristics that are set out in that letter, a campground where people can enjoy that, an event center where people can enjoy that unique topography and those unique features does make a lot of sense to me. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but this is the exact same project we presented here in May. The last thing I do want to point out, because I don't get to do this very often, I think maybe it's the third time I've ever done it. If you look on page 7 of your plan, of your report, the staff identified 15 policies for you all to consider. Every single one of those policies are complied with. There's not even a judgment call. There's not even the asterisk policies. Okay, and I'm always going to point that out because that's like once in a blue moon I get to stand here and say that. So to me, that's kudos to Mr. Slavey, and that's kudos to my client, because that's how that happens. So if y'all have any questions, I'm happy. Obviously, the staff report discusses every one of those in detail. I don't feel the need to read them all to you, but that page 7 speaks volumes to me.
Chris, on page 3 of the pre-application conference information, looks like that the Kentucky Transportation and Bowling Green were fine with the updated access to the concept.
That's correct. In fact, the access that we have in our application was their suggestion. So sometimes there's more maybe bartering that goes on with that. This is what they wanted, this is what we did.
And so, Chris, explain that this proposed venue is 1/2 Plum Springs and 1/2 Warren County Flume Amendment.
Well, and I'm not sure it's that those ratios are correct, but I do understand that part of this property is in the city of Plum Springs.
Okay.
Part of this property is in Warren County. What the staff has suggested is, assuming there is a recommendation for approval here, or actually, I don't know what happened in your last hearing, but sometimes these cases go up without recommendations. That may have just happened. I wasn't in here. But the staff has suggested, or it's the staff's opinion, that this would go to both bodies, for each respective body to approve within their jurisdiction, probably not the right term, but within their corporate limits. I'm not necessarily agreeing with that today. Frankly, I've never had that issue. And that's not for this body to decide anyways. Let me be clear about that. That's not this body's determination to make. It's a unique circumstance I have not seen before. But that bridge will have to be crossed whenever we get to it.
So that would only happen if there's an appeal, correct?
Well, no? I'm not sure Plum Springs has the new policy of if no one appeals. I think that's just the city and the county, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. So the according to what we're going to do, and then we can decide what you're going to do after that is, the portion that's within this jurisdiction of Plum Springs has the right to vote on the
Got it.
zone change of Plum Springs. They did not adopt the alternative zoning process, so that will go to them. Warren County Fiscal Court will have the opportunity, if it's so requested of them, because they have adopted the alternative zoning policy, to look at what's in unincorporated Warren County.
So Plum Springs would be under the old system where it's a recommendation from the planning commission that goes to the Plum Springs body, correct?
All the planning commission vote is all the same, so the planning commission will make a recommendation to both bodies.
Okay.
It's just after that point is where the process is changed a little bit.
Very good. And then, so Chris, you may or may not be able to help me, this will be staff as well. So, I think the only other campground that I'm familiar with is the KOA campground there at Three Springs. Would this zoning be similar to what we see? I guess it looks like this is even more stringent than what you might see at a KOA or something like that.
KOA on Three Springs, I'm fairly certain, I'm going from memory, is also HB,
HB, okay.
Highway Business. I can't recall off the top of my head if there are binding elements, or I would assume the restrictions, if any, would be different because it would have been zoned well before the adoption of this comprehensive plan.
Okay.
And there's also a campground at Beach Bend.
Okay, all right, very good. All right, thank you.
All right, Chris, anything else?
Nothing more from me if you don't have any more
Thank you.
questions. Thank you.
Commissioners, any other question? I'm sorry for Chris's. All right, thank you.
I just wanted to mention the safety thing again. I just know it's like a concern in the community.
Yes, Commissioner Ballinger, I meant to address that. So what I would tell you, and if my clients want to speak more on this, I'll talk to them in a minute, but what I would tell you is this is going to be a professionally managed facility, obviously. I don't know the details of what this type of facility costs, but it's not cheap. So it will be managed. It will be insured, obviously. That insurance is probably not cheap. And with insurance comes usually quite a bit of standards. So that may be a half measure. That may not be satisfactory, frankly, a satisfactory answer. But this type of investment has got to be protected. It has to be insured. It has to be managed. And you know, the waterways, what someone might say presents a danger is also the beauty and the utility of the land. And really that's what makes it ideal for outdoor recreation and for it to be protected that way, as opposed to another commercial use or multifamily use. So that would be my response to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, is there anyone here tonight that has a question or an opposition to this request? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Your name and address, please.
Rusty Vertrees, 856 Plum Springs Road.
All right, swear to tell the
Swear
truth.
to tell the truth.
Thank you, Ms. Vertrees.
I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but I don't understand how a campground is compatible with a subdivision. And as far as being professionally managed, KOA is too, and somebody drowned out there. So you can't watch kids all the time. I don't care how big it's managed. And I've been over there. There's probably 100-foot cliffs that drop straight off. And like again, I'm not wishing any ill will, but can y'all answer me how a campground can be in a subdivision? That's my question. And try to make me understand.
All right, thank you, sir.
If it was your subdivision.
Okay, we don't need point fingers, thank you. Yes, is there anybody else that has a question or opposition to this request? I think we've talked about safety and compatibility.
I'm Tammy Meredith.
Yeah, all right.
I swear to tell the truth. I live
What's your address?
774 Plum Springs.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
I live in a house right in the corner of the first curve. Actually, a little past it, in a historical home I restored, built in 1850. And their spring was part of the Big Graham Springs, that my house was from that plantation. And I understand what they're trying to do. My main concern, and what they've done here, they've limited the RVs, that's good. And what they're doing looks really good, and I understand that. My main concern is that it's just kept up good, that we have what beautifies Bowling Green. If you go to Beach Bend, I was just there, my cousins are in a $150,000 RV, and nothing was weed eated. It looked like trash, and if I'm gonna have to look at that, or our whole community, then it's not something that we want. Now, if you're gonna do it with the class that we want, like the entrances coming into Bowling Green with the horses and the monuments and all the trees, and maybe a barrier of trees on the Plum Springs Road that will hide people's privacy, that would mean a lot, okay? Also, if they would consider maybe another entrance the street over in the commercial area, the commercial side of it to pull in, because, and I know they say it passed the road construction, all that. The first curve is really where they're going to be entering into the RV park. There is a curve there and a blind spot. Now, if they remove a lot of trees, if they improve that, but we're talking 2 sharp curves. And up until the last meeting in May, there's a lady just killed there. These are 2 very critical curves where lots of wrecks have happened. So I'm across the street from this. I want it to be pretty. I want them great success. All I want is the traffic of the RVs that's going to be hard to move in and out of in that curve, to have most of it entering to set up from the commercial street where all the commercial businesses are. If you can understand that, that would help to some degree.
All right, thank you very
Appreciate your
much. Yes, so we've talked about compatibility, and thank you for the information on the curves and the street and the safety. Is there any other different comments? Yes, sir. And we don't have it up, but everybody has 3 minutes to give their comments, please. Yes, sir.
I was going to go through this whole thing.
Your name and address, please, sir.
Doug Fugate, 3499 Mount Olivet Road. I swear to tell the truth.
Thank you, sir.
Apparently, I'm the other gentleman that Mr. Davenport was talking about. Members of the commission, I'm not here tonight to disparage Mr. Brown's proposal. I'm here to suggest that Graham Springs and surrounding lands have a far greater purpose than to become a commercial RV parking lot. Graham Springs is one of 2 truly outstanding natural hydrological features found in Warren County. It's unlike anything else in Kentucky, surrounding states, to include most of the eastern half of the United States. As such, we have a responsibility to preserve this irreplaceable natural wonder for present and future generations. This is not an original idea. Dr. Nick Crawford, retired director of the WKU Center for Cave and Karst Studies, submitted a proposal to purchase and protect Graham Springs nearly 20 years ago. By way of context, Dr. Crawford was the driving force behind the acquisition and development of Lost River Cave. He and like-minded conservationists were able to acquire the land and help turn it into the educational and recreational space it is today. Can you imagine the alternative without his visionary leadership? Lost River today would probably be a drainage ditch between apartment buildings. Dr. Crawford saw Lost River and Graham Springs as 2 unseen and unsung local treasures. The former has been protected, and it's now time to protect the latter. I've been in contact with Dr. Crawford, and with his permission, I would like to present portions of his original...
Sir, you've got 3 minutes, okay?
I know. I'm reading fast. Proposal with my current thoughts is original text was available. I have it with me tonight. The objective of saving Graham Springs from commercial development is to protect, preserve, and celebrate the unique natural landscape and cultural history of Warren County. Such an effort would result in recreational, educational, and tourism opportunities for the county. The centerpiece of the project, Graham Springs, is a complex of 3 springs which drains most of northern Warren County. Mr. Brown owns this property, and this natural landscape is unique, sensitive, and priceless, as it cannot be replaced if it is lost. As for the 3 benefits I mentioned, let me briefly mention the possibilities. Warren County, Bowling Green, and surrounding school systems all use Lost River to teach children about the environment, ecology, and the importance of good stewardship. As an outdoor laboratory, Graham Springs could be used to monitor water quality, study the health of ecosystems, and conduct experiments utilizing native plants and animals. As for recreation, there could be fishing, hiking, bird watching, boating, and picnicking. Many of these activities currently enjoyed at Weldon Peak Park and proposed at the River Park, currently under development, could be extended to Graham Springs. Walking paths, biking trails, kayaking trips could connect one site to the other, thus leveraging the whole Barren River experience. There might be an opportunity for horseback riding, trails, glass bottom boats, and whatever. Public surveys show a need for authentic outdoor recreation. As for cultural history, Graham Springs has been used by indigenous Americans for centuries as a place to camp while hunting the barrens. Volunteer docents could lead guided tours and talk about such topics as the Long Hunters, the importance of Barren River, karst topography, the barrens, and the Civil War. Funding is available from various sites.
Sir, your time's up.
Okay.
Get to your last page. One last
In
point.
summary, Graham Springs is a natural wonder unduplicated elsewhere in the state of Kentucky. It's local, conveniently located ecological asset. It could become a natural refuge as commercial and residential development expands in all directions. It fits nicely into existing infrastructure and public plans for the Barren River locale and has the potential to augment the many lifestyle amenities that draw both visitors and residents to this area.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, thank you very much. We have to give everybody time to talk. We're not. Is there anybody else with a different comment or questions? Come on up here. Yes, sir. Your name and address, please.
William Compton, 720 North Graham Street.
All right, Mr. Compton, you swear to tell the truth?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So, they mentioned traffic on Plum Springs Road earlier. The traffic on Plum Springs Road is a disaster. People speed up and down that road. There are wrecks. People have lost their lives on that road. That's one issue mentioned earlier. To my knowledge, there's going to be another exit point on Commerce Street. And for anyone who travels down Commerce Street, you know that that street is a disaster. It is a Bowling Green City road, and they have not paved that road. They do patchwork that's made it worse. And with the increased traffic from this, it will only deteriorate it even more. And the city has not been willing to repave that road. And the residents who use that road often cannot afford to have that road deteriorate quickly and more.
All right.
That's my biggest issue.
Thank you. We talked about traffic. Very good. Yes, sir. Anybody, you had something? Yes, sir. Your name and address, please.
Curtis Butler, 602 Plum Springs Road.
Mr. Butler, swear to tell the truth?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, I didn't realize, I thought it was actually all in Plum Springs. I don't know why it's not. It's definitely called Plum Springs Nature, but you guys did pretty good by putting this up here. This looks phenomenal. This is going to affect especially, guys, the people that live around this thing. I know there's a lot of traffic. We talked about that last time. If it's my understanding that there's a lot of money that's going to be spent for the traffic, of the viewing, of the trees coming in and out of that place. And I think that's phenomenal. I had a lot of questions leaving here last time, and my answer was an absolute no. However, I have learned a lot. I've asked a lot of questions. I've done a lot of homework. And I mean, I don't see it, and I think I speak for a lot of Plum Springs residents. We was worried a lot about the managing of this place, what it was going to look like 5, 10 years down the road, 15, 20 years down the road. There's a lot of residents there that's been there for a very long time. We have a lot of elderly residents that's been there for a very long time that can't be here at this meeting. So I think our biggest issue was the management and what it's going to do to our property value as this thing is put in. As far as I can see and looking like this and with the right management and this thing moving forward, I think it's going to be a big improvement. However, I would like it to see all in Plum Springs, and Plum Springs be able to set some rules and regulations and work closely with the Brown family on being able to know the rules and regulations. Is this going to be a big party place, or what can we do to shut it down where our elderly at 9 or 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, whatever that might be, can be set into place, and rules like that set into place, so it helps a lot of our community out and a lot of people with a lot of questions.
All right, we'll let Mr. Davenport address your comments. Very good comments.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else tonight that has something different? Yes, sir. Your name and address, please.
Mitch Rickman, 280 Grogan Street, Palm Springs.
Yes, sir.
I swear to tell the truth.
I'd like to point out, up until about 4 weeks ago, this was in complete contradiction to the comprehensive plan. What we have here is a campground. This is I'm not a camper, but this is absolutely the worst type of campground. What happens to a campground of this magnitude, which we're talking 33 spaces, is it's seasonal. They have a hard time keeping upkeep. And what happens inevitably, from everyone I've spoke to who camps, they don't go to these type of campgrounds because inevitably what happens to these campgrounds is Mr. Brown, or whoever's running this place, needs not generating revenue in the off-season, and they end up renting their spaces permanently. So we'll have trailers sitting down here, which is a possibility. And I also like to point out, currently, this is zoned residential. Currently, he could not run an Airbnb on this ground. And this is a residential area, and we're a place where currently we could not put an Airbnb. We're going to put a campground. This is not compatible with this area. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Okay, thank you. I think we've addressed many good questions. And Mr. Davenport, would you come up to the microphone, please?
Yes, sir.
Can I add one thing really quick?
Yes.
Just by zoning ordinance requirements, for a campground or RV park, the maximum stay is 29 days. So in no circumstance could anyone stay permanently.
Thank you, Rachel. You stole my thunder there.
Mr. Davenport, you've heard some of the comments. Would you briefly address them, please?
Yes, sir. First, kind of working back in time, we do have in DPC 7 both hours of operation and quiet hours. I didn't really highlight that earlier, but that is one of the conditions that will attach to this property if it's rezoned. There was, again, some statements about access. I'll just reiterate the access points and how the existing infrastructure serves the property were the recommendations of the state and the city, I believe of Bowling Green, maybe the county, but the appropriate transportation folks, that's what they wanted. That's what they said works best. And, you know, basically I'd have to be arguing against those folks if I were to propose something different. And in recent history, I don't think that's very successful before this commission, because I think this commission trusts what those folks advise. The last thing I'll say, and I would have led with this earlier, I did not realize this. I was talking to my clients when Ms. Meredith was speaking, and I think she had very good points, and I appreciate that. And the other gentleman that spoke about the maintenance and keeping it in good shape. Valerie Brown, one of my clients, is a past board member of the Lost River Cave. Mr. Brown built most of the buildings at Lost River Cave, was the contractor for many of the buildings that exist out there. They've both been involved in Lost River Cave over the years. And I didn't know that, so I would have mentioned that earlier. That's part of the impetus. That shows in their past where their desire is and what their wishes are. The last thing I'll say, and I didn't know this either, Mr. Brown's family has owned a majority of this property since 1967. I think the two largest springs on the property are the Blue Holes, the springs he has owned in his family since 1967. He has over the years tried to acquire the rest of the ground. And frankly, as he pointed, he hopes this is commercially sustainable, in large part so that the area can be protected with what the campground and the event center produces. So they are in a large part saying, trust us, we're going to do this right. But when I hear they've served in philanthropic areas and served on the board of Lost River Cave, that would give me some confidence that their intentions are in the right place. So I wanted to point that out.
All right, thank you, Chris. Okay, we have no DPC changes, so commissioners would call for a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed zoning map amendment together with a condition upon the general development plan, docket number 2024-30Z, COPS. Based upon the testimony and documents presented in this public hearing, the proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by its compliance with the objectives and action items presented in the staff report. Therefore, the proposed zoning map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further, I request that this motion include a summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at this public hearing.
Second.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Volker,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Bollinger,
No, sir.
Commissioner Drain,
Yes.
3 votes yes, 1 vote no.
Excuse me, I was thinking you were going to call more people. Getting late. So the motion is approved, and as was discussed, this will go before the Plum Springs Commission and Warren County Fiscal Court for final approval. Thank you all for being here tonight. Our next item is Marilyn Virginia Pruitt. Our last item is Marilyn Virginia Pruitt has filed an application to rezone 8.2 acres located at 8... Okay, if everybody would mind, if y'all wouldn't mind going outside, please. Would y'all mind going outside to talk? Thank you. Marilyn Virginia Pruitt has filed an application for zone 8.28 acres located at 8984 Scottsville Road from ag to general business and OPR office and professional residential with the general development plan. Ms. Hurt?
Thank you, Chair Warren. We had a pre-application meeting back in May for the property at 8984 Scottsville Road, and the applicants have applied to rezone the property in order to convert the existing residence to an office and develop the portion of the site along Scottsville Road with various commercial uses. This is the current aerial view, and you'll see the current zoning is agriculture. Current land use is also agriculture, and then the future land use map is mixed-use residential. I will point out that the area in blue is the area proposed to be rezoned to office professional residential, and then the dark green area is proposed to be rezoned to general business. In reviewing
Rachel, say that again.
the dark green area, the main piece here, that's proposed to be rezoned to general business, and then the light blue shaded area where the current house is proposed to be rezoned to office professional residential. In our review of the comprehensive plan and the review criteria, we did find the application to comply with the majority of that information. We found the application to be generally compatible with the surrounding area. We have a few items for your consideration. The first relating to prime farmland on page 2, we've noted that a majority of the property is classified as prime farmland or farmland of statewide importance. And then I will mention that Mr. Pardue contacted me late this afternoon. I think they're prepared to make a couple of changes. So some of these points to consider may no longer be applicable. Looking at page 1, the bullet item number 3, staff has noted considerations for the OPR, office professional residential portion of the development relating to the scale and appearance of any new structure. So I'm going to look at page 3 under the surrounding architectural features. And we've noted that the existing structures fronting Wilson Road, except for Split Tree Barbecue, are residential in scale and appearance. And for this reason, the staff suggested that the applicants consider including an additional development plan condition for the OPR portion of the development, that if the property is ever redeveloped, that any new structure would be residential in scale and appearance. And this was left unaddressed. And then the fourth bullet point, staff noted considerations for the GB portion of the development relating to prohibited uses. So I'm going to look at page 3 under surrounding land uses, and actually I'm going to go back to the land use map here. You'll see from the land use map that the uses in the vicinity are either agricultural or single-family residential. There are a couple of public uses and vacant tracts, and then there's one commercial use, Split Tree Barbecue, designated in the purple color there. And so due to the majority of the surrounding uses being agriculture or single-family residential, staff suggested that the applicants consider prohibiting standalone multifamily residential uses, eating establishments with drive-throughs, or retail with drive-throughs or pickup windows. And this was also left unaddressed. Those are the few items for your consideration. There were a couple of items noted, but assuming Mr. Pardue comes up here in just a minute and agrees to some of the changes regarding the location of parking and reservation of an area for future greenway, then those items would no longer be a concern of the staff. And with that, our recommendation is for approval, pending any public hearing testimony and discussion. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, questions from Ms. Hurd?
So do we have a like a development plan or elevations or anything? Do we know what we're doing?
We just have the preliminary development plan with the proposed building footprints, general parking layout.
Okay, all right, very good. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Commissioners? All right, thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Ted?
Yes, sir.
Good evening again. I represent the applicants in this matter. There are a number of family members. I have, there's about 5 of them, I believe. I have one here this evening that's here on behalf of the rest. That's Miss Marilyn Wilson Pruitt, down here to my right, I guess your left. Tommy Hunn and Lynn Hunter with her. They're working with her and the rest of the family on this property. I don't have a whole lot to add by way of what Rachel presented, but as she said, I do have a couple of revisions to the development plan conditions that I want to recite on the record. The first, and they specifically address a couple of the items that the staff pointed out in the staff report. The first is that we're going to add a development plan condition. It'll be 14 for the office professional portion that will say there shall be no parking within the front building setback, and the majority of all parking shall be located behind the front facades of buildings facing Wilson Road. That is a...
Tad,
yes, sir.
Sorry to interrupt you. In our packet, there are 14 DPCs already, so...
In the OPR, so it'll be 15.
I'm sorry.
I thought I counted 13.
Yeah.
So it is 14. Okay.
I'm sorry. It is 14.
I thought I double checked it.
Pardon me.
Okay, no problem. So I'll recite it again, but what it is it's something that's set forth in the, I guess, the Scottsville Road Corridor study that we agreed to as it relates to the general business portion, and quite frankly, probably by oversight, failed to include it in our office professional. But it'll be OPR DPC 14, no parking within the front building setback, and the majority of all parking shall be located behind the front facades of buildings facing Wilson Road. And then the second change would be adding a developed plan condition to the general business portion. That's the portion out on Scottsville Road. And what we'll be doing is adding a DPC 13, which will require the developer to reserve an area to provide for future greenway connection. And again, similar to the other, we did include such a developed plan condition in the office professional portion.
I'm afraid to raise it again.
It's 15.
Did I?
I think I got it right this time.
So you got, okay, so that's DPC 15.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
I clearly didn't check that. Thank you, Mr. Moore. Sorry about that. But those are the two revisions, and again, I didn't get those to Ms. Hurt till late this afternoon, so we're going to make those two changes. Otherwise, I would just comment on a few things. Obviously, if you look at the future land use map, it envisions this property being used as mixed use. That is what we're proposing by way of a general business and then again an office professional zone to try to maintain some consistency or compatibility, if you will, with what commercial businesses are in the vicinity. You'll see in our development plan conditions, we reduce the maximum size of buildings from what is allowed in general business, which is 10,000 square feet, in half. So we've essentially said the maximum square foot of any building on the property should be 5,000 square feet, and that is consistent, generally speaking, with the size of the Split Tree Barbecue Restaurant. That's kind of how we came up with that figure. But again, this is a property, as you can see on the future land use map, that was envisioned by the creators of that map as commercial in terms of its use in the future. We've limited certain uses. We recognize it's on a federal highway. It's one that's probably suitable for some type of commercial use. Anyone that's driven out Scottsville Road can see the volume of development that has occurred and that is occurring out there. You all have, I'm sure, seen a number of applications. I know there have been some commercial zones approved along Scottsville Road and that corridor in the last probably 2 or 3 years. Again, it's flume compliant. Be happy to answer any questions about the specifics of our development plan, configuration of buildings, parkings, access, anything like that.
Ted, what
you have questions.
what does, and I know we're in the preliminary stage here, what uses do they potentially see out there?
Yeah, probably.
For the commercial?
So you'll see on the concept plan, just to be transparent, that lot that's closest to the corner of Wilson Road and Scottsville Road, we have a gas station depicted there on the concept plan. I will tell the commission that in the process of having a CDR meeting on this property, it was discussed that there are, I guess, certain rules environmentally with what type of material can be used on water lines within 200 feet of a fuel tank. I mention that only to say that there would be quite a bit of expense required to modify water lines in this area if someone wanted to develop it with a fuel station. We didn't want to eliminate a fuel station as a use, but I think based on what we understand would be required for a fuel station, it's probably unlikely, but again, we wanted to include it on the concept plan simply because it would be permissible in general business. Aside from that, you're probably looking at, you know, either a commercial office type or retail use.
Okay. This is a question for staff, and I'm probably not using the right word, but when we talked about being like in Alvaton, what's the right term where we talk about not a neighborhood, but
Overlay.
rural village. So a lot of our developments have been in the rural village, Rich Pond, Alvaton. This is not this is not a rural village. So
That's correct, it's not. It's not as far as the comprehensive plan and the future land use map. It doesn't go out that far on your packet map, but if we were to zoom out, the rural village designation is further south in what was historically thought of as Alvaton.
correct.
But when considering the last time we amended the future land use map, we looked at this area, and that's why it was designated mixed-use residential to potentially allow a little bit of small commercial activity to hopefully help and support the existing Split Tree, and then also honor some existing old commercial zoning that was in there.
But the Split Tree, going back from the history lesson, was when Scottsville Road was widened.
Correct.
And it was in the courts, and
Correct, but there was still some, a little bit of existing commercial zoning right around Split Tree.
And then I guess also to touch on like Ben said, when we did the most recent update to the comp plan and the future land use map, this area was designated for mixed-use residential, but I will just note that on page 2, we've included a category description, and it says that in mixed-use residential areas, that this category applies to areas where taken as a whole, the primary land use is residential and a variety of housing types and densities balanced by complementary commercial, institutional, and civic uses. And then it further goes on to say that the distribution of land among these various activities shall be implemented through specific zoning with standards addressing the form and character of development to ensure compatibility. So while it's not designated as a rural village, there's still opportunity within this category if you feel that there are things that could be tightened up a little bit more. If you had questions that specifically address those things where it talks about the form and character of development to ensure compatibility, I think those are fair questions that you could ask.
So you've kind of opened the door for me there. My guess is that the applicant may not be all that opposed to tightening a couple of those things up, but I want to try to put this into something tangible. My first question is this, probably it's a staff question, and then it's going to go to Tad. Did I understand you correctly that the staff made, excuse me, a recommendation of prohibited uses?
Correct.
All right.
They did prohibit certain uses in DPC, let's see, which number that is. 7, on page 7.
Okay.
So they did introduce some prohibited uses, but then along with that, because of the character and the surrounding uses, then on page 3, that was one of our points for your consideration. We did further suggest that they prohibit standalone multifamily and then eating establishments with drive-through or retail drive-through or pickup window.
Okay. And so I'll go to Tad here in just a moment on that. And then would that characterize this tightening up that we just talked about to make this a bit more compatible or fit a little more closely with that rural village theme that we're discussing now? Or would there be other things we would need to add to that?
Well, in addition to that, our only other point then to consider on the surrounding architectural features, again, going back to the character of the area, is just along Wilson Road currently, that the character
the residential look.
is residential mainly,
Got it.
except for Split Tree Barbecue on the corner. And that's where we had the suggestion that because of course right now the structure is residential because it's a residence. But that if it were to be redeveloped, that any new structure would also follow that same character and be residential in scale and appearance.
So Tad, I'm going to put this in Tim's simple layperson terms. I'd like for this to look pretty. I'd like for it to look nice. I would like for it not to be just a generic, piece of property that somebody wants to develop. I suspect your client is probably in agreement with that. So my first question would be this. Do you think you could address those prohibited uses that staff has suggested? And then secondly, do you think you could address those appearance items that staff has suggested with regard to there along Wilson Road?
Let me tackle the prohibited uses first because that one's easy. That is acceptable, and that is prohibiting multifamily uses in any restaurant or commercial uses with the drive-through. We're willing to agree to that, and if I need to have Ms. Pruitt step forward to acknowledge that on the record, I can.
Okay.
I guess my only response on the OPR residential in characters would be more of a question, and that is about how that is implemented, and that's a subjective term. And
you killed it, and so I'm not sure I have the actual answer here. I'm hoping staff is going to bail me out and tell me what that is. But ideally, it sounds like the objective here is to get an appearance that's acceptable.
And I think you're right that I think my clients agree to that. And then I guess the question would be who determines what's acceptable.
Let me pose a question
Sure.
to staff real quick. Do you have some verbiage that you've used in the past that would help us here?
I guess we have used similar verbiage. I'm trying to think back to a recent zone change on either Nutwood or Magnolia. I always get them mixed up. But historically in that area, there were homes that were converted for business uses. If there were vacant lots, for example, after the tornado, there were vacant properties, but then the offices or commercial properties that relocated on those vacant properties, they look just like a home, but the use is commercial.
Okay. I'm trying to make a suggestion, but still give your client some latitude here.
I think we're on the same wavelength.
I think we are.
I think it's a matter
I'm
of-
trying to figure, I'm not the wordsmith here, and I don't know if, usually I lean on Hamp to bail me out here. I don't, what I'm looking for, do you understand what I'm trying to do? And then is there some verbiage we could add to help that?
I think I know exactly, but let me make sure I understand. What what will trigger this would be if the current residential structure located on the property is destroyed or demolished, correct?
Correct.
And so this would be...
Because it's obviously residential in character because it's a house.
Right.
Yeah, so you're right. It would have to be, removed.
So the OP, we're talking about the OPR section. Which would this now become 15, or where are we going to add?
16. You already have a 15.
We're going to add a new DPC.
OPR, it would be 15. We had 13, we added 1. This will be 15.
All right, and so we're going to say, in the event the residential structure located on the property is destroyed or willingly demolished, the developer agrees to reconstruct all structures on the property with residential construction features. I don't know if I like that. I don't know that we can go, so what are residential features? Has to do with roof pitch?
Yeah, I was going to say roof pitch would be one of them, because a lot of commercial structures have a flat roof.
Right.
The windows.
Shingle roof.
And so it would be, the facade and the windows and the roof pitch, et cetera. And so I tell you what, why don't we let Tad confer with his client and see if they've got something that they would agree with? Because it wouldn't prohibit the use, you would just do a structure that has that appearance.
Yeah, but what we've got to do is have enough standards expressed in the DPC so that when somebody says, I don't think that looks residential,
Right.
we can see what we meant.
That's what we're trying to nail down. And I'm hearing from my clients that it's not, in theory, it's not I think they agree, it's just a matter of putting it into some type of development plan condition that it can kind of be more objectively.
Help me out, Christian.
Well, I mean, your roof is going to be your biggest issue. I mean, if it's a residential look, I mean, the roof, I mean, Tim, what's the pitch going to be?
They could do anything from a 4 to a 12.
Mr. Peterson to the rescue.
Yeah.
So I got a suggestion. What if we said that the new structure would have to have the same or greater roof pitch as the current structure and use similar building materials? That's two out of 3 we discussed.
Yeah. And yeah, I think that would help a lot.
Yeah, same or greater
So
roof pitch.
basically,
Is that what-
you're just
And
gonna
they've
use
probably
the similar
only got,
materials
I
and
bet
same or
that
greater roof.
existing structure probably only has maybe a 6-12 pitch on it.
It's
or
not much of
something.
one. I drove
Yeah.
by it earlier this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's not much of a requirement.
No, I agree.
And I would also put in there no vinyl.
Yeah, I think that's already,
Well,
I think that's already prohibited in the building
Miss
materials.
that in the,
Let me
So we
double-
talked about roof pitch that's going to be the same or greater than the existing structure, the same exterior material, and there's a third thing that you all talked about. Windows were mentioned.
Well, I don't know if we would address the materials because those are already in number 2. And
Okay.
all of the materials in number 2 would be residential.
There you go.
Because I think at the beginning, we even eliminated like metal and.
You're right,
other
we
things.
did.
By zoning, it's 4,000 is the
Do
maximum.
we have a story, do we have a height restriction here?
No PR.
Oh, number 4, 2 stories, max.
Okay. I think that's going to get us pretty close. So you can do no more than 2 stories. You're going to have to do something close to the pitch on the existing structure. And you're already bound by the exterior materials. So it would be very difficult to go to just a straight commercial structure
Sure.
using that parameter, I think.
What was the language that you rattled off, Mr. Moore, as far as how it would address the roof pitch?
Same or greater as the existing structure. is what
Okay.
I heard.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think that'd be okay. Let me just double
Okay.
check.
Do we know what greater roof pitch means, that you all know?
Yeah, well, so let's say it's a 4 or a 5 now,
A more
you could go
acute
up to a
angle?
12 or something like that. So greater is a good term to use there.
Okay.
I think we've got it.
Okay.
We're in agreement.
And so, gunshot, do we know where that's going?
I think well, to me, it seems to fit naturally within DPC 2,
That's fine.
which concerns building materials and facades, and I think we can incorporate it in there and just address that if the existing structure's removed.
And we finished with that, when we talked about prohibiting standing alone multifamily and commercial uses with drive-through, that, of course, applies to the GB portion.
That's correct.
And which ones are we going to add that to? Is that number 7?
I think it would be 6.
VII was where we had other prohibited uses.
Okay.
Page 7.
You know what? I'm looking at the wrong copy. You're
I
right.
was going to say, you know, Tab, look at, while we're confusing ourselves, look at number 12 in the GB.
I've got it here. I was looking at my,
Hamp, I also just want to make sure, we've included the standalone multifamily restriction as well. Did we all agree to that?
that's correct. Yeah,
Okay.
that's going, that as well as restaurants and businesses with
Yes.
commercial uses with a drive-through.
No drive-through.
Okay.
So Tad, would you go to
I'm
the GB number 12?
Yes, sir.
So that sentence stops in mid-sentence.
And that's probably my fault, just when I finish the staff report, so I'll take the blame.
Yeah,
for
there's a
that.
little bit more to that.
And it carries on in 13.
Yeah, you're right.
So,
That's where our numbering system got
Yeah.
messed up.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's why
13,
your numbers are different than mine.
13 goes away, 14 becomes 13, and I finally get the 15 back.
That's right. That's right.
Well, you'll clean all
So my numbers were right after all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I will.
And do we need to get your client to agree to those?
Yeah, we can. Ms. Pruitt,
Ms. Wilson.
Ms. Wilson.
I live at, my name's Marilyn Gibbons, actually. It's Marilyn Wilson Pruitt Gibbons. I live at 10667 Alverton Road.
Swear to tell the truth.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. You've heard the amendments. Do you agree to those?
Yes.
Okay, is that good?
There were a lot.
Thank
sure
you.
kept track of all of them?
My father was part of this session at one time.
Is that right?
James Wilson.
Oh,
He
Mr.
was
Wilson.
magistrate in Alverton, yeah. So I've been around this,
All right,
this
thank you.
scene.
Thank
They used to
you.
get home later than they do now, right?
Okay. Commissioners, do we have any other questions for Mr. Pardue? Thank you, Ted. Is there anyone in the audience tonight that has a question or opposition to this request? Yes, sir?
Richard Gibbs, 318 Wilson Road, swear to tell the truth.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbs.
So one of the things that you'll notice on the map, where you can't see on the map, is all the residential that is around that. Actually, it's on here, right? Can I work this?
Just hit the arrow
Oh, there, that was wrong arrows. So all of that is residential except the green that they're currently trying to do and the red. And that really doesn't fit with everything that's around there. I mean, there's nothing but houses surrounding that. It's actually bordered by Drake's Ridge and by Dove Point. There's a lot of traffic that goes in and out of Wilson Road going to Drake's Ridge right now. You're looking at Scottsville Road, that's a 65 mile an hour through that zone. I live in this area right here. Right here. I see buses, 6 or 7 cars deep, trying to get out on Scottsville Road at that particular point right there. So for them to get out, go do J-turns one way or the other, you're looking at a high-density area right there of traffic. So one of the things that I think about the area, one of the reasons I moved to the area, and a lot of people move out that area, is to get out of all this business. They like to get out in the rural areas. And now they're taking the rural area and making it a business area instead of what we wanted, which was to be around other people and drive into town and get what we want and then be back in the rural area. So this is basically taking Bowling Green and putting it out in the Alverton area where there's nothing but houses currently. There's a lot of ag equipment that runs up and down that Wilson Road. Because there's a lot of agriculture still around there. I see tractors constantly going up and down those roads. Now you're going to turn around and put a business in there that's running, from 6 to midnight. It's not going to be very good for the residents or for the other traffic that's already there. One of the other concerns I have is the property values of all those homes around there whenever they start putting all these businesses in there. From what I could see on one of them, it looks like they're actually possibly going further down Wilson Road with additional. I'm assuming the Browns are proposed. What are the Browns on the screen?
This is the future land use map, the mixed-use residential category. I read it earlier where it was talking about how it's primarily residential with complementary commercial uses.
And the Browns are,
So the brown could be residential or commercial.
okay.
I think the brown parcel to the east side of Jerome Drive, I think it's currently zoned neighborhood business, which is a commercial zone. If you flip to the zoning map, I think it's one map over. Oh, sorry, go back the other way. Sorry, one more. Yeah, so the pink color on the north side there, that's already designated for commercial use.
Okay, so, but currently, everything else around there is residential.
Right.
It also, as you come down Scottsville Road, it's not going to fit with the aesthetics that's already there. There's nothing but, if you go by Drake's Ridge, you see all the homes. You go by Dove Point, you see all the homes. And now, in a small 5-acre plot there, you're going to have several businesses. Yes, I know Split Tree's been there. It's been there for years. But it's actually now going to become more of a commercial area there at that Wilson Road that is really not, it's not even striped there. It's just a two-lane road with no stripe in the center for you to be able to see.
Mr. Gibbs, you got one more minute.
So the other thing that I see is because this is in such a residential area, I feel like it should be very limited on the hours of operation. Business hours, 6 to 6 maybe. It's very hard for people with families to be having, you know, all the lights on out there, all the traffic going on from 10 to 12 at night, whenever they're trying to go to bed, because all those are homes. That's all I got.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience tonight that has a comment or a question, something different, sir? Yes, sir. Your name and address, please.
Veldon Kudik, 111 Stampede Court, Alvington, Kentucky.
Yes, swear to tell the truth.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Every morning I travel, I live right next to Mr. Gibbs. Every morning I leave for work at 6 a.m. And when you do try to merge onto Scottsville Road, at that time of morning, you can see 90% of the cars with the new turnarounds and the merges, they want to kill each other. And to put any kind of commercial businesses that close to that merging lane, it's going to be very, very tough on Wilson Road. And Wilson Road is not even wide enough to pick up diesel pickup trucks to, you know, fit on it correctly, but it still manages where, like I said, if you try to get out of there at 6 a.m., you got a big problem. So, thank you.
Sir. Anybody else in the audience has a comment or question? All right, thank you all for your comments. Mr. Pardue, anything else you'd like to add briefly?
Could we try to address that hours of operation that was brought up? Do we have our hours of operation currently?
5 to 12.
What is that, I'm sorry?
We did commit to hours of operation and.
5 a.m. to 12.
Yeah, and you'll notice that the hours of operation on the proposed OPR portion, which separates the general business portion from the residential areas on in the back, are much more limited than those. The hours of operation that the gentleman that just spoke was referring to, those relate to the general business portion, this portion that sits right out on Scottsville Road. The idea behind how we propose the rezoning, rather than seek the whole tract to be rezoned as general business, we tried to establish that more neighborhood type zone that would somewhat transition or buffer the general business from the residential in the back, and the hours of operation on it
So that would be like if you did do the
are
the
6
gas
a.m. to
station.
7 p.m.
Okay. And then the other one would be like if you did the gas station, it would be up on Scottsville Road.
Correct.
Got it. All right, very good.
Where you're going to have probably most of your vehicles coming in and turning right out onto Scottsville Road, as opposed to going back out right down Wilson Road into the residential areas.
Okay.
That, and then as it relates to transportation, Public Works was in on the CDR meeting, and, you know, everything that they asked of us as it related to transportation, we committed to. You know, their primary concern was lining up the entrance and exit with the road next to Split Tree across the street, which we committed to. Other than that, they didn't see any issue with the proposed use and how it might impact that intersection or traffic on either of those roads.
Okay.
Thank you, Ted. All right, Commissioners, do we have a motion for this zoning?
I make the motion to approve the proposed zoning map amendment together with and condition upon the general development plan docket number 2024-31ZCO. Based on the testimony and documents presented at the public hearing, the proposed zone map amendment is consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by its compliance with the objectives and action items presented in the staff report. Therefore, the proposed zone map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further, I request this motion to include the summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at this public hearing.
Second.
Commissioner Volker,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Drain,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shaw,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Vitale,
Yes, sir.
Chair Warren.
No. The motion is approved, and Planning Commission final action in 21 days unless a request is made to the legislative body to hear the item. Any other items tonight? Thank you all for being here tonight, commissioners, and we stand adjourned.